Yes, that's right. It's the inevitably nonsensical, yet hopefully enjoyable, After Movie Diner Season 2. Like all good sequels, in Season 2, you can expect us to ramp up the action, expletives, gratuitous mentions of James Spader's inner thigh, and of course, the gore. That's right, we're going to be rupturing earlobes, nastily prodding dangly viscera, pulling kneecaps off and splashing about in the goopy bits. Oh, I'm sorry, I got carried away. Calm yourself, Leanna. If you enjoy the show and have pursued the recommended treatment from your medical providers, why not support the show on Patreon over at patreon.com/aftermoviediner. You can also donate to the show directly at aftermoviediner.com. Rate and review the show wherever podcasts are found, and rating and reviewing is possible. Even a 1-star review provides useful insights on exactly the sort of petty-minded and wretched individual who negatively reviews free entertainment they do not need to be consuming. So, without further dribbling, please rub 2 nearby dogs together for the one, the only, John Cross.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the After Movie Diner. And back in the hot co-host seat. It's a very heated seat. We like to treat our co-hosts' buttocks with respect during this rainy, grey season. It is the wonderful and always welcome Matt Poirier, however you pronounce the damn thing. It's Matthew. You know him. You love him.
Thank you. Welcome. Well, yeah, thank you for welcoming me back on. Thank you for having me back on.
No, you've been, through the Belushi ones, which we'll get back to. We'll do more Belushi. Yeah. And then these next couple of episodes of the podcast, it's fine. You're on a streak here, Matt, and it's a pleasure to have you, because if I couldn't rely on calling you up once a week or once every other week and just sort of talking at you for 2 hours, there'd be no show. There would be no show. No one else is willing to go through all that. But how have you been? And tell everyone what is happening in your world, because you're not only a respected podcastman in the form of direct-to-video connoisseur, but also an incredibly well-respected blogsman in the form of direct-to-video connoisseur. But you're also an incredibly gifted authorman in the form of your series of novels. So tell everyone all about all of those things.
Yeah, so the most recent one we have is Don's House in the Mountains. Came out in November of this past year. It's about a Gen Xer named Don, who's an author for like 20 plus years. Suddenly his novels just take off, and he's like worth over $100 million. And his wife decides that she can't handle it, and she splits with him. So he moves to a house in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and there's a sense of that perhaps the house is magic, or just the fact that he's so rich that he can just buy everything and everything can be stocked in the house. And so that there's
I like the idea of the house being magic.
Right. It's hard for he doesn't necessarily know, and as a reader, you kind of you think it's possible, for example,
he keeps you guessing to the end.
Yeah. Yes, there's one character in the book who she's been in 3 of my novels, and I'm going to maybe make a novel about her specifically. But her name's Elaine Laughlin, and the with her character in the very first the first appearance she makes is A Girl and a Gun, my second novel, and she writes a series of vampire lit novels based off the fact that the character Sonia Rostova from War and Peace going on after War and Peace to become a vampire hunter, and she's like the next J.K. Rowling essentially. She's like so rich and famous and everything, and she's gay, right? She's lesbian, and in Don's House in the Mountains, she's at a party that Don's throwing for other authors, and 2 supermodels show up because one of the other authors is dating a fashion designer, and she brings a couple supermodels with her, and she ends up having a threesome with the supermodels. And the next day, she's just like, it's like I dreamed of having 2 supermodels here, and they suddenly showed up, and so it's like that idea: is it magic, or is it just because they're rich and famous that like she's the next J.K. Rowling that 2 supermodels would want to have sex with her? So it's like
which I don't know. I think J.K. Rowling's okay with that. I just think that if any of the people in the threesome consider themselves either a different gender or a mixed gender or, a fluid gender, if any of them
Right.
in that threesome have had any thoughts
Right.
about one, because they're all lesbians, so I mean maybe, or they're at least open bisexual, they're either lesbians or bisexual, so maybe it would not be out of the realms of madness to think that two lesbians and a bisexual person might have at some point thought about, or however identified themselves as, a different gender. J.K. Rowling would not be okay with that, Matt, and she would probably, I don't know, take a picture of herself burning your book on Twitter or something.
Exactly,
In this book. But what about sports,
the
Matt?
thing is,
I hate that argument so much. Sorry, you do your thing, and then I'm going to do a sports rant.
The thing is, like the Elaine character, she was born in 1981, so she identifies as a woman. She's a woman, that's kind of her thing.
Right.
But the supermodels were born in the 90s,
Yeah.
so they're that Gen Z. Or maybe not quite Gen Z, maybe like late millennial, but where they would be more apt to be gender fluid.
Well, they've been empowered
Right.
they've been empowered to be themselves in
Right,
a way
exactly.
that we were the last, we were the first generation to have to wrestle with both.
Right.
So we had people in our lives, most people in our lives, who were like, you can't be anything, you should shut up, children should be seen and not heard. Go stand in the corner, whatever. We had that, right, when we were growing up. But then as we sort of got into our 20s, when we should have been confident, we suddenly became anxiety-ridden mad people who were then told, but it's okay to be anxiety-ridden mad people, so go with it. And then, our generation's children and sort of the younger end of the previous generation, they have all now been empowered to be completely themselves,
right?
Which is a beautiful thing, Matt. I'm in full support and agreement with it, because guess what? It really is nobody else's fucking business. It just isn't anybody else's fucking business. Yeah. There are two things people they complain about: toilets. All this, the fear of toilets. I'm like, fine. Then make all public toilets cubicles. There, solved your problem. Make all public toilets cubicles, and because the thing is, if they go, you're going to tell me a rapist won't get through a cubicle. I'm like, well, if that was the case, they would have done it. Do you know what I mean? Whatever bathroom you were in, because they're a rapist, they're a lawbreaker, they're an insane person, right? Yeah. So the toilet thing I've solved. Make everything a cubicle and shut the fuck up. Toilets, solved. I've solved toilets, right?
Here we go. All the conservatives in North Carolina, it's figured out.
I figured it out, North Carolina. You can shut the fuck cubicles. It was staring us right in the face.
Exactly.
What is the toilet style that both genders share? Let me think. Yeah. Because it's only men, Matt, that need a separate receptacle. Why?
Right.
Just make it all cubicles, Matt.
Exactly.
Solve toilets.
Exactly.
So there's that. The other thing that I hear all the time is sports. Well, what about sports? We should think very seriously, deeply, and earnestly about sports. First of all, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. It's sports. Ultimately, if you cared, I love sports. Don't get me wrong. I love ice hockey. I love baseball, whatever. But if I was to care too much about sports to the point where I gave a fuck who was underneath the helmet or the jersey or the cap or whatever, if I cared that much about it to the point where kneeling bothered me, that's where I would be like, maybe I'm giving too much of a shit about people millionaires I'll never meet kicking a ball around. All right? So that's firstly, stop fucking caring. Matt, you say your thing.
Well, no, because you make a really great point about this, because it's like this idea that like these towns are just sending out like armies of trans women to win field hockey tournaments, right? Like that, that's what's happening. It's not like somebody who's going through this like really difficult time, like trying to figure out who they are as a person, coming to grips with this and realizing that if they do make this decision, that the world is going to look down on, that they're going to be ostracized, they're going to get funny looks, they're going to get we're not as, we think we're more open as a society than we really are.
No. Like if you have decided to be trans, begin your trans journey, have any questions about who you are, which whether we admit it or not, heterosexual white men or whatever have all those questions and anxieties. We just don't voice them, but we have all those between the ages of about 8 and 18. We have all those questions and all those things. And people who say they don't are just lying, posturing, or trying whatever. So, but we never voice them. The fact that people are voicing them on whatever spectrum they are on, of any gender, of any sexual orientation, it's all fine and wonderful. If they are going through that and they're voicing that, it's already a shit show. You are already facing the worst of humanity every single morning. You decide as a male-looking person, even if you don't identify as that, if you put eye makeup on, straight, gay, trans, it doesn't matter. If you put eye makeup on as a man, you already start the day with shit, right? Wading through shit, right? Yes. So imagine how it is for a teenager already being bullied for all the other reasons you get bullied in high school, deciding to make this decision. If that isn't bad enough, you're going to turn around and be like, well, and another thing, stop fucking playing sports.
Right, exactly.
Like, what?
Right, exactly. I do remember it was a nightclub one time that was like really crowded, and the women's room was just overflowed, so some women were trying to go into the men's room. Right. And the thing that they didn't realize is kind of one of the issues, I think, why there's the urinals is because us guys do not like to pick up the seat when we're in at least for me, I might use my foot to kick up the seat. Right. But especially if you're hammered, you're just like going in there, just pissing in. It's all, And I remember hearing this woman like go in after me. Right. She goes in after me. I'm kind of like, oh, you can use the bathroom in here if you want. I don't really care. Yeah. The moment she goes in, she's like, what the fuck? It's like, well, yes, we're guys, most of us are not going to sit on the toilet at a nightclub.
And
it's
I think that's probably the issue. Right, is that's the issue. But what I was saying before about cubicles, right, because I get it, I understand. But what I was saying about cubicles before is you could still have a men's bathroom and a woman's bathroom, but people who identify as men, people who identify as women, people who are fluid or whatever, basically anyone could go in either bathroom. And it's just if you go in the men's one, you're going to expect vomit and piss all over the seats. You're just going to expect it because it's not saying the men on the door is not saying only men allowed. What it's saying is this is a bathroom predominantly used by idiots who haven't understood how to A, aim their willy, and B, just exist as a decent human being in modern society. That's what men says on the wall of the bathroom. Then everyone else is on the other bathroom. And that's the one where if you are a man and you go in and you urinate, either wipe the seat or lift the seat, because that's the decent bathroom. And then the one with the word man on it is the one where they've, literally three of the toilets out of 5 are out of order. And not just out of order, Matt, like, oh, the ball cock came off and now it doesn't fill with water anymore. It's out of order, like wrenched from the wall with like porcelain smashed. And fucking
like a pyramid of shit coming off the top, peeking out of the top.
Like it was destroyed by a cosmic atom shit that just landed and fucking mushroomed out, depositing porcelain and effluent all over the fucking... And that's just one of the 3 out of order. So that's what man on a toilet door denotes. It's not about gender and who should be allowed in. Everyone should be allowed in. The last thing I'm going to say about on the sports thing, because I need to wrap that up and then we can move on. I don't even know how this came up, but I'm loving it. The sports thing, I've solved sports, and it's one word, Matt, tennis, right? Yes. And let me explain. What happens in tennis, Matt? Men and women play the same fucking game on the same fucking court in slightly different uniforms. And you know what? There have been plenty of incidences where women have wiped the fucking floor with men. So if it's okay in tennis, and before people go, well, you don't need to be muscular or you don't need to be whatever, you can be feminine to play tennis. Shut the fuck up. Have you ever seen a female tennis player? They are muscular to shit. Similarly, do you know what a sport where they haven't given a fuck? Wrestling. Men and women wrestle together all the time in wrestling. It's never an issue at all. They have tag team women against tag team men. They have single women against men. But they whole thing. Nobody gives a shit in wrestling. Nobody gives a shit in tennis. Listen, if it's good enough for wrestling and tennis, if a woman or a man who identifies as a woman or a woman who identifies as a man or whatever wants to join a fucking ice hockey team along with a bunch of big burly Canadians and fucking Swedes, have at it. Why are we the ones to be like, well, I don't, it would be like saying in a when they have that basketball team and the one short guy joins the team and he's fucking phenomenal. He somehow wipes the floor with guys 3 times his size, right? It would be like going, I'm sorry, the only people allowed on a basketball team are 6'8", freaks of nature. If, 5'10" people should not apply. Well, you'd immediately go, but 5'10" people can play basketball just as well as 6 foot. And you go, exactly. Women can play sports just as good as men or just as bad as men. And why don't we stop just fucking judging people? Maybe a little fast fucking... It's also because they all have a misogynistic view of what a woman is. They all think a woman should be thin and short and small and incapable. And that's when they go, women shouldn't be playing men's sports. That's what they're talking about. It's a misogynistic view that all women should be petite, fucking frail, need a fucking man bullshit. And women aren't like that. Women have never been like that, will never be like that. So let them play sports. Nobody gives a fuck. Let's grow up. Everyone just grow.
Well, because I think if there's a town somewhere that's somehow saying like, oh, you know what, instead of having, like let's just get a whole bunch of men, right? And have them and pretend that they're transitioning so that they can dominate like the state high school women's sports team. Right. It's like, why would you, no town is doing that. Nobody's doing that. And it's like, if there's one transitioning woman on a girls' basketball team and a high school team, and she just happens to maybe be stronger than some of the other women, just like there isn't this big of a disparity, right? No. I mean, I think maybe because everybody's seen Juwanna Mann or something, and they think this is how it works, right? Is that like, oh, well, if you allow a trans woman to play sports with women, that it's just going to be like armies of men dressed up like, wearing like blue skirts and playing field hockey here in America.
Right.
It's like
any of these people have ever come across a trans person, really. You know what I mean?
Yes,
in general. They've probably seen one on TV way more than they've seen any in real life. And it's just, and that's the thing, is like, when did it become that what was on the screens and what was on television, and most of all, what was in the news, overrid our experience of our actual life? Meaning, and what I mean by this is, most people, let's say you're a right-wing person in a small town in middle America, right? You finish your day, you go down the bar, you sat around with a bunch of like-minded people all talking about the same stuff, what they believe about the world, what they don't believe about the world, saluting the vets, all the rest of it. Hallelujah, everyone's happy. But if someone comes on TV and goes, oh my goodness, the minorities and the trans and the whatever are coming for your jobs and your sister's cock or whatever, right? But this army of people are coming for you. Even if your daily experience is you just go down the bar and talk to your friends and get angry about this army of people, why don't you look around the bar and go, wait, where did the army show up? Oh, they didn't show up? Then I guess it's not a bigger threat as the fucking boneheaded idiot on the TV is making it out to be. Maybe my daily experience is my daily experience. Right. And so, like, this is... we just completely lost the ability to judge reality, and forget also that when you just go down the road and talk to the people you find there, whether it's in a restaurant, whether it's in a bar, whether it's you actually find that you have way more in common than you have differences. And if you have differences, you can sort of go, all right, I think that's a load of old crap. And he can go, well, I think you're a load of old crap. And you go, another pint, and you move on. Because it's not, none of it's, at the end of the day, Matt, none of it's important, and it's so tiring. It's just so tiring. Interesting, too, that they're not worried about man-on-man rape. They're only worried about a man or woman. Man on man rape, I think they're quite into if they were honest with themselves. Anyway, let's move on from this subject with that barnstorming ending, because Matt, I know that, like me, you are a fan of the cone tip chocolate wafer dessert treat. That I don't know whether I introduced you or you introduced
Yes, you did. No, you introduced me, because remember we had a whole conversation about it that I didn't record.
Yeah.
For my podcast.
Oh yes, of course. Well, they're cropping up everywhere now. So there used to be one brand at Costco which was called Muddy Teats or something. What's it called? Teats. It's not Teats. It should be, but it's not.
Like a big cow, like laying with his back with his big nipples. Just
Muddy Udders. Or just Mudders.
The big cow-turned cow. Yeah.
No, I don't know. Anyway, they are the chocolate tip of an ice cream cone, but it's just the tips. And there's so many brands out there now. There's one that's, I don't think it's called just the tip, but it's called something like it's like only the tip or something like that. It's almost called just the tip, but it's not, because obviously they would know that they would get a problem. There's also these ones called Tiny Bites, and I brought them onto a show and tell portion of this audio podcast because I found not one, but two packets in where were we? Was it Home Goods? Home Goods, because that's what I am now, Matt. I'm a man who goes to Home Goods in his spare time. Anyway, I found these two flavors. One, white chocolate flavor. Never seen that before.
Oh, that's interesting.
I also want to know, Matt, can you think of an ice cream flavor that even has white chocolate in the bottom? It's always milk or dark in most cone varieties, no?
There must be a Ben and Jerry's that uses white chocolate, you'd think.
No, there's probably ones that, but in a cone, though. I'm thinking of a cone.
Oh, that's a good point,
Like the bunny cones or the drumsticks or...
Oh, yeah, I don't think... You're right, they don't. Because I don't think white chocolate behaves the same way as regular chocolate.
It's
when
naughty and sneaky.
Exactly. It's like technically not chocolate.
It's technically like, not anything.
Right, exactly.
It's technically like Larry Cohen's The Stuff. They found it dripping in a mountain in the Appalachians or something,
right, exactly.
and they were just like, "Don't tell anyone, it's white chocolate." But look at this, even more exotic, Matt. It's getting. I tell you what, it's getting crazy out there with these tiny cone chocolates. Because look at this, s'mores cones. Tiny Bites s'mores variety.
Wow, yeah. With the waffle cone.
It's a waffle cone with graham cracker and with chocolate and with marshmallow in it.
That's amazing. Amazing. Trader Joe's has them now, too. They have their own version of them.
Trader Joe's had we went to... I forget, is it TJ Maxx over here or TK Maxx over here?
TJ Maxx,
because it's TK
the same
Maxx
company as Home Goods.
It's TK Maxx in the UK. Yeah. But so TJ Maxx over here, when we were standing in the checkout line, they have the all the snacks, all the different popcorns and all the different chocolates. Dude, they must have had 5 different brands of these, and some of them were just all the same one. There was one that was like a hazelnut or whatever. There was like a milk. There was a dark. But going to Home Goods this time, and I was like, "Oh, look, they have white chocolate and s'mores variety." I was like, "I'm buying those, Matt, and I'm showing them to Matt next time we talk."
That's amazing. I haven't, because there's a TJ Maxx in centers. The only thing is, like, so I'm always traveling with my backpack because I'm running errands and things like that.
Right. And
I don't know if they'd give me a hard time for having the backpack, because TJ Maxx is they've got a lot of loss prevention they've got to do there. So it's like some of those places they're like, oh, you got a backpack. They either want you to put it aside, but it's like, if I'm filled with groceries,
one of those backpack guys.
Right. Yeah, you're a backpack. I guess if my beard is really, really going, because wear my knit Phillies cap over my big beard. Sometimes that can look really, really with I wonder if this guy's even got a home to go back to.
Exactly. It's like, this guy's living out of his backpack.
Right.
Watch him. backpack man.
Exactly. If I push it like one day more on the one pair of jeans I'm wearing, when I should have probably washed them, and they're kind of, after they're out and they smell, it's kind of like, okay, this guy smells bad. He's got an old backpack, and he's got he's got a big beard. I don't know if we trust him coming into the store to not cause a problem. And it's like,
he's definitely a terrorist of some kind.
Yeah, yes, I think the places near me that I shop at a lot, they know me. So they know, like, okay, this guy's actually going to come in and buy something. He's not just going to, like, walk out with, like, a whole stack of, like, deodorants under his arms.
This guy isn't just an errant hobo just wandering the streets. I don't mind a little casual sabotage because, well, I tell you what, because if they were trying out a new drug, right? We're talking about CVS or Rite Aid, whatever. If their evil drug making overlords were trying out the next drug for plaque psoriasis, which, by the way, Matt, has turned out to be a much bigger problem than I ever thought plaque psoriasis was. Every third commercial on TV these days is for yet another complicated named drug that's for a slightly dowdy rash on your arm that if you just put a bit of Vaseline on and got on with your day, nobody would say fucking anything.
There's these thousands of people out there who can't go to their high school reunions, who can't go to picnics, who can't ride roller coasters.
The one where he takes the woman to the like fancy restaurant and she's wearing like a denim jacket over her dress or whatever, and she goes to take her denim jacket off and then she looks at her shoulder where there's a slightly reddish blemish or whatever. And she's like, oh, I can't take my jacket off at this nice restaurant. I'm like, you could. You're just insane. Anyway.
What restaurant is so well lit that, like, your plaque psoriasis has just got, like, this, like, do they have, like, fluorescent lights that you're, like, eating at, like, a cafeteria?
Well, what you don't understand, Matt, is at certain classy restaurants, if the maitre d' is aware of plaque psoriasis as you walk in, they drop a spotlight on you for the whole meal. They have Klaus in the rafters with one of those big old Hollywood style spotlights, and he just goes cha-chung, and the light goes vroom, and you're just haloed in this incredibly piercing light, and your plaque psoriasis just goes and just becomes bright red and enormous.
You suddenly turn into Swamp Thing. You're just so covered in plaque psoriasis.
It's a poor, like, no, but the only reason, like, again, if you have plaque psoriasis, take whatever medicine you want. Don't give a fuck. Go rub yourself in fucking Bulbasaur. Couldn't give a fuck. But I'm just saying, Matt, that I didn't expect to watch TV and over the course of an evening go, do I have plaque psoriasis? My face is a little dry and red. Like, should I be on Plemzic or whatever the fucking...
I've got a picnic to go to next week. Should I be concerned about this?
Yes, should I be on Quizansax or whatever the name of these fucking things is? There's always got X's, C's, and V's where there shouldn't be.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then they find out that the fucking the side effects.
Right,
yes.
Like,
do you have a slight rash on your arm? Well, you could, if you take this pill, you could also have suicidal thoughts and actions.
You could die. You could die from it. It's like these people who freak out with the vaccine. It's like, do you ever watch TV and see that, like, any of the medications that they advertise, you could die from them? And it's like, I read somewhere that sometimes people who take Ozempic, which is another one that they advertise, where they use the
that's
magic
the new
song.
craze that everyone in Hollywood is taking Ozempic.
Right, Ozempic. Well, apparently, like, under certain conditions, you could have, like, such bad gastrointestinal like reactions that you lose your gallbladder.
All right.
And it's like,
but this is what I was saying is when they're formulating new drugs,
right?
If 10% of the 1,000 people or whatever kill themselves when they take, Plubescence or whatever the fuck these products are, Quizansax 0.8, only available if you have fucking, what's that thing? The healthcare thing with we need Medicare Part C. We only have A and B. Oh, I'm going to fucking hit whoever came up with that bullshit. Whoever came up with that. Oh, my goodness. But no, what I'm saying is, they would call that acceptable losses. If like 100 people just fucking dropped dead when they were taking this pill, whatever, acceptable losses. I don't mind it when people are shoplifting from places like that because it's acceptable losses. It's if you're not going to pay your staff a livable wage, then you have to, as a company that is making $1 billion a second off the back of people with restless leg syndrome or fucking psoriasis or whatever. If they're going to be making money hand over fist off the back of these people and not paying their staff, it's acceptable losses that they're shoplifting.
Right.
You know, everyone in the country should at least shoplift one thing from Walmart on a monthly basis, because that would start to tip the scales because they've stolen so much from the American taxpayer.
Actually, I found out this works in the other way. Actually, I listened to this show called Behind the Bastards, and they were talking about insurance fraud. And they were saying that the reason why insurance companies don't pursue like fake doctors who put in false claims from them is because it's actually cheaper for them to raise everybody else's rates than it is to use it. You know, and that's how the companies look at it. Like that's Walmart. The way Walmart looks at it, it's cheaper to just charge everybody an extra 5 cents to buy whatever it was that was being stolen. Than they tip the scales. It's like eventually. The stock buybacks and the dividends are going to get paid out to the stockholders. It's just who gets screwed.
You are right. You are right there. But I still think we should all shoplift from Walmart at least once. How about this? At least once in our lives.
Right.
Just every single person who's alive on the planet right now should just once shoplift from Walmart. It doesn't have to be an expensive thing. If 7 billion of us do it, then... like everything, I try and have a socially conscious point. But it's, if you are going to fuck over the American taxpayer, then the American taxpayer is well within their rights to just be like, I'm having that lipstick, shut the fuck up. And I'm going in that man's bathroom, even though I'm a woman. All right, next thing on the agenda, Matt. There is a new movie out, Matt. Don't know if you've heard about this. Seinfeld, because we haven't heard enough from him, has made I love his comedy. I hate the man.
Yeah.
God, he's so out of touch, wildly out of touch. Anyway, doesn't matter. And arrogant, and so fucking arrogant.
Yeah.
Well, we had the biggest hit TV show. Shut up. So there's a new show. There's a new movie for Netflix, right? Seinfeld, billionaire, makes movie for Netflix, which is probably the reason why gets paid by Netflix. Like instead of as a billionaire, Matt, going, well, I could literally make millions and millions of movies if I wanted to. Instead of doing that, Matt, he went to Netflix just so that he made sure he got some of our money to make his movie. Because God forbid billionaires put any of their own money into anything. Except tax havens, prostitution rings, and
buying off politicians,
fraudulent charities.
Yeah.
So anyway, just shitting all over Seinfeld. John, what's your strategy for getting the After Movie Diner back on top? Well, I'm going to take the guy who single-handedly has proven time and time again to be the most popular person in the country by general viewing figures alone, and I'm going to shit all over him. But I have a reason, Matt. I think it's a very good one. So you've got Seinfeld, you've got the two-headed hydra of nonsense, Seinfeld and Netflix. The unholy alliance has begun, master. Right? So you have this happening, right? Seinfeld's directorial debut, well, live action. I know he did Bees or whatever. Anyway, but do you know what it's all about? It's about the cereal wars in the 60s between Kellogg's and Post. And it's all about the race to invent or put out a Pop-Tart. Right? And I'm like, I was watching the trailer and I'm like, it's funny. It's whatever. It's sci-fi. I mean, look, he's really funny. He's like, there's no denying he's an incredible craftsman.
Right.
And just so funny. But, so I'm watching it and blah, 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 blah. And then I walk away and I go, wait a minute. And then I start thinking about it. We've had Tetris and Beanie Babies and fucking Scary Hot Cheetos or whatever was a fucking movie. Gucci was a movie. Ford versus Ferrari, Barbie. We had all these movies. There was Tetris, the BlackBerry movie. Yeah, We've had all these movies about products lately, and it used to be that you had really cumbersome product placement crowbarred into a movie that had nothing to do with product placement. Hang on a second, I need some water.
Yeah. Get your Yeti. My Yeti is covered in dust. I gotta clean it. Like you're sometimes like because my office it's
my
really
Yeti
bad,
is covered in
but
dust.
It's like I just like okay. I finished this drink and I put it aside here and then forgot that I put it the empty thing there and now it's just now I've got to actually it's like well now I got to clean it. And it's
they go through the dishwasher pretty well.
Do they? Oh, okay, good.
Right, and a little sidebar on Yetis, right?
Right.
So you know how. No, because I'm fascinated by this. This is a thing. So for years and years and years, we had thermos, right? And thermos kept things hot or kept things cold, depending on what you put in it. And you were just like, oh, the thermos. That's what it was for forever and ever and ever. And there were other companies, Matt, but they fell by the wayside, toppled by the corporate giant of thermos, being like, you want liquids kept hot or cold? We are your chaps. Right. Then out of nowhere, Matt, the Yeti arrives.
Yeah.
Just arrives out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's doing exactly the same thing that thermos has been doing for years, but we all somehow bought into it.
Yeah.
And it's apparently better. Like people swear, they go, this keeps it colder. I'm one of them. I have a hot one that I have in my tea, and I have this cold one that I use for my water. And I've said it, dude.
Yeah.
I've said it. I've never had tea kept this hot for this long, and I've never had, lemonade or whatever kept this cold for this cold. And then I started to think, well, okay, what if Yeti is a new thing? Like, what if it's a new alloy or a new, combined metal or something? There was a new thing, right? But then I went, wait, what happens? What happens is all good things that we all buy into, that we go, oh, fuck, I never knew that we could have this. A TV in my pocket? Who the fuck invented this crack? And then we find, made by Asian child labor, slave labor.
Yeah.
And you go, every time you then pick up your fucking wizard in your pocket device, you go, there's the blood on my hands of lots of, Asian children.
By a jerk who denied his daughter, who was horrible to people. Yeah.
Right.
Like just,
doesn't pay taxes. Right.
Right, died of pancreatic cancer because it was actually diagnosed early and he could have fixed it, but decided to do some sort of holistic thing until it was too late. Like, yeah, right. I was surprised at just how bad Steve Jobs was, but it's still like, I'm holding evil in my hands. But I love it that I can like you said, like I can buy tickets to sporting events or watch videos and stuff on it. Yeah,
right. No, totally. But like all good things, where we get all excited about it, and we buy into it wholesale. We'll find out, Matt, that. Oh, the mystery about Yetis, the reason why Yetis are better, the Yeti Corporation was sacrificing millions of baby otters to a Lovecraftian deity that they believe sat atop Mount Kilimanjaro and we're one day going to give them the secrets to the universe. You go, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, no. The reason why your Yeti keeps things colder than anything else is it's off the back of 1 million, and I'm talking millions. There were fields strewn with the dead bodies of baby otters. What, the cute things on YouTube with the little, the cute things on YouTube with the little funny paws. They murdered millions of them, Matt, brought them to near extinction just so we could have slightly colder water. And we'll find that out. You know what I mean? That'll be a moment where we'll all collectively look at each other and be like, I don't know though. It does keep water very cold, and we'll maybe in the same way that we react to the continual deaths of our children by firearm, non-ironically, just other children gunning down other children, or crazy people just gunning down other children. In the same way, will we look at the dead baby otters and go, acceptable losses.
Yeah,
and go
you know
back
what
to
it
our
is?
cold liquid.
I honestly think that's no. I think the baby otters would be enough to kill the Yeti
Right.
because you could just go back to Thermos, right? But
Because Thermos is over here,
Right.
just being like, well, we do make our shit in sweatshops in Thailand, but don't look that up. Don't worry about it. We're the good guys. Thermos is over here in their like plaid and tweed, because Thermos was always like a cozy color, whereas Yeti's like slate blue and sleek silver, and you're just like, because we are the devil. Anyway, so to go back. Seinfeld is making a movie about breakfast cereals and Pop-Tarts, right? On Netflix.
Yeah.
And I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, funny, it's cute. It's about like, it's like Pop-Tarts, like the Beanie Baby movie or the Blackberry movie or whatever, but it's about like fucking Pop-Tarts. Oh, that's cute. And he'll get to do a lot of like observational witticisms about cereal and little fucking bon mots about fucking glazing or something, or icing or whatever. I don't know what he's planning. Who can tell? Maybe it's just him and a bunch of his stand-up friends driving around in a car for half an hour talking about fucking times that they were much, much funnier than they're being right now. I don't know what it is. Maybe it'll be one of those things. But I watched the trailer like most people went, I'll watch that. That'll pass my time, which is what Netflix wants you to think.
Yeah.
Netflix wants you to watch the trailer and go, oh, another innocuous part of old drivel. Put that into my eyeballs now because my brain is so melted by the fucking culture wars I have to fight every single day for no reason whatsoever other than people's fear and stupidity. That fuck it, just pump syrupy Dayglow Seinfeld bullshit into my face sockets and let's get on with it, right? Then I started to think about it, Matt, and I'm like, wait, it's a billionaire making a movie about warring corporate multi-billionaire fucking companies who have been, by the way, Matt, feeding children poison for like 50 fucking years, right? What did you do today, dear? Oh, I gave an entire generation diabetes. Good night. Sleep like a fucking baby, these cunts. Anyway, I'm really on a roll, Matt. So suddenly I'm looking at it and I'm like, fucking Netflix took my fucking money, gave it to a billionaire, who then went to fucking two other billionaire companies and went, if you let me, probably in a fucking hot tub, Matt, surrounded by fucking 18-year-olds pouring them champagne over their ample bosoms somewhere in a tax haven. That's what I'm picturing. Seinfeld and two old crusty white men who own fucking Post and fucking Kellogg's sitting in a hot tub with Dan Aykroyd. Nobody knows why Dan Aykroyd is there. But he's fucking there because Dan Aykroyd's fucking everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
He's quaffing fucking Crystal Head vodka straight from the skull, right?
Right. He's got a black T-shirt on, even though they're in the hot tub. He's wearing his black T-shirt still.
Meanwhile, Donna Dixon is chatting up the towel guy. Being like, the fuck did I ever fucking marry Raymond Stans for? Elwood Blues. Anyway, so you have fucking Seinfeld and the wrinkly old boobs who run fucking Post and Kellogg sat in a hot tub, and he's like, if we all go to Netflix, we'll be able to get the common man's money to make a fucking movie about not one, but two giant billion corporations, written, directed, and starring a billionaire. How about we do that? That'll make people feel good. And suddenly, Matt, I felt a little sick. Just a little sick. And then I suddenly started thinking, why are they making all these movies about products?
Yeah.
When did that happen, Matt? Can you remember like the first one you kind of clocked and went, wait?
The first, yeah. I mean, because you think about like, obviously, like, properties, right? Like comic book characters, things like that like
Right.
you could turn into products, like He-Man, right?
Right.
He-Man was a product before it was anything else, and they made a movie about it, and that movie didn't do that well. But part of it was because it wasn't made that well.
But the animation was, I mean, that lives on today. People remember it so fondly.
Yeah,
It's because it was their first homosexual awakening, Matt. When they saw those furry little red underpants, they were like, Adam from Eternia, you are a beefcake. Then there is no doubt about it.
Right.
Bring your little mushroom hair over to me. Sorry, continue.
Well, now, one of the things about Americans in general that I've noticed, and I don't know if this is true of the rest of the Western world, but Americans like being lied to and sold to, and I don't know why that is. But I think that's what it is with all of this stuff. It's like, oh, I want to watch a movie about Pop-Tarts because Jerry Seinfeld made it, and I think Pop-Tarts are great. And like most of the kids are going to watch a movie about Pop-Tarts don't even remember when they were like pre-frosted. That time when they weren't frosted, and you just like got them, and they like I remember my mom. When I was growing up, when I was a kid, my mom would work, and it was like one of those things like in the morning when my sister and I would go to nursery school or whatever. It was like, here's a Pop-Tart. And it was like this dry, crusty thing that had like a smattering of like blueberry preserves or something in the middle of it. And it was like, you felt happy to have that because it was the 80s and it was the early 80s. And, it was like, it was good. But it was like, there's nothing like nostalgic about it or anything like that. But I think like kids nowadays, like millennials in particular, they just love anything that they reminds them of being a kid.
It's like Twinkies and Pop-Tarts.
Right.
Like America is Twinkies and Pop-Tarts. And you never say a word against Twinkies or Pop-Tarts. You know what I mean? You could probably say that Hershey, in fact I have said it, that Hershey chocolate is an abomination unto the human race. And resembles chocolate like fucking dog shit resembles car wax. But I can say that. And most Americans would look at each other knowingly and be like, he's not wrong. Because they had a bit of Milka on vacation or something and they suddenly realized, oh my God, where the fuck is this delicious actual human food from? Let us import it. Because when I first moved to America, it was a lot of Hershey's. Now I'm seeing Hershey pushed out for other better...
Right, like Lindt. Lindt came from Switzerland. Yeah.
Lindt is fucking killing it. Lindt went from being hoity-toity exclusive candy to being the chocolate of the everyman because they realized Hershey.
You go to Rite Aid and you can grab some while you're trying to rip off the manager for your laxatives that you stole or something.
You're not wrong, Matt. So everything about the Seinfeld cereal movie makes 100% sense on paper, right? You've got Seinfeld. Oh, he's bound to have a bunch of cereal bits. Seinfeld, he's definitely got cereal bits. The whole sitcom that he was in for years, what did he eat? Cereal. He's bound to have some cereal bits. It's going to be a fucking slam dunk with the cereal bits from Senor Seinfeld. Great. Phenomenal. All right, what next? Well, Pop-Tarts or Twinkies? Well, let's get them on the phone. And they call up fucking Kellogg's or Post or whatever. Who does Pop-Tarts? It's Kellogg's, right? Kellogg's Pop-Tarts, yeah.
Yeah, because I think what it was is the guy who invented them, because the guy who invented them died recently. Right. I think he worked for one of the cereal places, and they didn't want it, so he sold it to the other one. I think that's what happened.
Okay. So, Papa Pop-Tart, right, who invented them, whatever, a Kellogg's Pop-Tart. They call them up. They call Twinkie up. Hostess is like, nah, we're not having any of that shit, mate. Then they call up Kellogg's, and they're like, we would love some of that. Everyone has been moving away from sugar-covered cereals lately to have some of that fucking, crusty oat-based, raisin-covered, squirrel feed. And we want to give them, poison, wheat wrapped in poison, gluten wrapped in poison. We want to be able to do that again. So we're on board. So please make Pop-Tarts successful again. Seinfeld doing a bunch of cereal bits. Netflix is like, well, job's good. And then Seinfeld goes, all the people who was on my show, comedians getting cars and coffee or whatever. Comedians getting cars in coffee is what I said.
But the weird thing, I don't know why my brain does this, but my brain reorganizes
Yes, you understood what I meant. Yes,
and it's like I didn't skip a beat until you, and then you were like, oh no, and I was like, that's right, he switched the two. Yeah, like,
no, but that's what my show is going to be called:
right.
Comedians in comedians getting cars in coffee. It's just comedians have to be buried up to their neck in coffee.
Would it be beans? Would it be the beans? Like the beans? Like yeah,
either the beans or liquid coffee. Either one doesn't matter. The comedians get buried up to their neck in coffee. They have 3 opportunities to tell a joke that makes the audience laugh, and if they do it, they get given a car while they're in coffee. They're just given a whole fucking car. Take your car, William Burr. Sorry, what?
But the car company's happy to have the advertising, so they're just
fuck yeah, of course. They're just hoping Pat Sajak, didn't already give it away to some lonely housewife from Idaho. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about that, Matt. So I'm glad we talked about it. Do you have any opinion about the movie? We're going to watch it, right? We're going to watch it. It's going to be fine. It's going to pass the time.
I miss a lot of these movies. I haven't I don't catch them as often, but. I mean, with Netflix, so my wife and I, we're trying to figure out with Netflix because we just have it because we've always had it.
Right.
And I haven't watched anything on there forever. I'm considering maybe dialing back to the commercial version of it because we pay for the non-commercial.
Right.
But it's like even that, it's like I don't think enough to log into Netflix and do it. But it's like I could never. I don't think I could ever get rid of Netflix, even though we don't watch it because it's like there's this idea of like something like this that like people are talking about watching. It's like I could see that. And it's like you're probably right. I probably will end up like. If it's on Netflix and it's like, all right, yeah, I'll see, see what it's about and see what happens. But
yeah, I don't know. There's a part of me where I'm going to be like, oh, that was fun and it passed the time and wonderful. And then another part of me that's going to be like, oh man, like this is just another big, everyone roll up their cars to the big capitalist gangbang while fucking Seinfeld cracks a few badly glazed jokes. Right, There's been an article going around from The Guardian, and I fucking hate The Guardian, Matt. Right. I hate The Guardian with a fiery burning passion, Matt.
It could be a furry burning passion.
Yes. I have been burning furries lately, but that's not what I'm talking about. I have been voluntarily going out into the furry community and burning them, which I believe they get off on. It's what I was told, Matt, by an arsonist that I did time with. Anyway, they did an article called "The Film Fans Who Refuse to Surrender to Streaming. One day you'll barter bread for our DVDs." And it says, as more movies vanish from streaming services, cinephiles are rallying to physical media. Can they save a seemingly dying format? So first, even in the subtitle, The Guardian have got it wrong. Right? Because it's not physical media is multiple formats. It's not just one format. Right there, Mr. fucking Guardian reader, I can tell J. Oliver Conroy is the fucking name of the author of this abomination. Right?
Yeah.
That he doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. Right. As more movies vanish from streaming, cinephiles are rallying to physical media. That's not why we've always collected physical media, you fucking idiot. Yeah. Can they save a seemingly dying format? Not a format, it's multiple formats. And while it is seemingly dying because that is what you are being told by the big corporations, there are plenty of mid-sized and small-sized businesses doing very well with physical media. But no one wants to talk about that story because that would go against the idea that you want to go to Walmart. Yeah. Right. Anyway, this was the line that struck me. I don't want to go through this whole article. But this was the line. I'll read the whole paragraph and then we can talk about it. When a hurricane struck Florida in 2018, Christina's neighborhood lost electricity, cell service, and internet. For 4 weeks, her family was cut off from the world. Well, I mean, they could get in their car. But okay, for 4 weeks, her family were cut off from the world. Their days dictated by the rising and setting sun. Yes, most people's days are dictated by the rising and setting sun. How are your days dictated fucking J. Oliver Conroy?
Well,
What's
the
your
internet,
first
you don't
name?
have to worry about the sun.
What's
right?
your first name, J. Oliver? Come on now. Is it John? You're like, I don't want to be John Conroy. I'd rather be J. Oliver Conroy, you pretentious tosser. Okay. So the day is dictated by the rising and setting sun because he thought he'd get a bit fucking flowery with his language. Everyone's day is dictated by the rising and setting sun. That's why it's called a day, you fucking moron. Anyway, but Christina did have a vast collection of movies on DVD and Blu-ray and a portable player that could be charged from an emergency generator. Word got around. The family's library of physical films and books became... He just snuck in books.
Right.
No mention of books prior to this. It was about movies. Just snuck that in. All right. The family's library of physical films and books became a kind of currency. Kind of currency, Matt. This area of Florida, without electricity, just went feral. It went feral, Matt. They were bartering for books.
It's like Richard Norton driving around with a spiked car and a vest with no shirt on underneath.
Oh, within 10 seconds, Matt. The moment Florida loses electricity,
right.
It becomes Raiders of the Atlantis. Like, that's... The very next day, they just wake up, they're like, wait, is that a bunch of 90s Italian punks on a fucking dune buggy? It is?
Fred Williamson's like, I heard there's a whole stack of DVDs over there that we can go, all right, let's go, the
fucking
Richard
Chuck
Norton's
Collins is like,
DVDs.
I hear they got the fucking, some new Stephen King in the library of books they're giving out.
Right.
Anyway, word got around, Matt. The family's library of physical films and books became a kind of currency. Because the land went feral, just went feral. Neighbors offered bottled water or jars of peanut butter for access. Not for the movies, just access to the movies. We want to be around them.
But what were these people that are like, I'm sorry, I've got a copy of Titanic double VHS here. Right. What do we got to borrow it? And do they got like notepads that they're writing down? Okay, jar of peanut butter. Yeah. Good, go ahead.
I'll take 2 pineapples, half a guava, and a box of cookies for the rental of Citizen Kane and Sunset Boulevard.
Right, with the Roger Ebert commentary track.
Oh, I want to find out what old Rog thinks about this. Never have I been more excited to see a large gelatin mass tell me what he thinks about a fucking film. I wouldn't wipe my fucking ass with that guy's opinions. Anyway,
the first DVD I ever got was Citizen Kane, and it had the Roger Ebert commentary track, and somehow I turned it on and didn't know how to turn it off because I was still new to DVDs and the DVD player, so I was stuck watching it with the Roger Ebert commentary track.
That is the worst.
Yeah, it was the worst.
That is the worst. I was stuck. Yeah. I was stuck, Matt, using the fucking Roger Ebert commentary.
Yeah.
And another thing I thought about was I ate my 58th cake. I don't know why he's English. I don't know why I made him English. And the other thing I thought about while I fucking ate my 58th cake. Anyway, I didn't like any of John Carpenter's films. Yeah, because you're a fucking moron. Whoever thought that the guy who fucking co-wrote, didn't even write properly, co-wrote a Russ Meyer movie. Movies not known, Matt, I don't know if you know Russ Meyer, but not known for their dialogue prowess. It's not really the focus of those films, Matt. And this is who we were taking film critique advice. This is like he's like the Walter Cronkite of film critique, and he likes 1 in every 7 bazillion films. Right. And God forbid it be a genre film of any kind. God forbid it be a comedy or a horror film or an action film or anything. Well, you know what they say about comedies. There has to be at least 3 laughs in it. And I don't know about you, fucking Robert, but I fucking ain't laughed once. Thumbs down, next cake. Like, just fucking, I hated him with a passion.
Though I will say, in his defense, there's a Peter Weller movie. What was it called? It was The Something Age or something.
Something Age?
it was this really great movie where somehow Peter
I've seen
Weller's
almost all Peter Weller movies. I don't know anything called The Something Age.
Oh, it's like it came out like 96. It's why can't I find it? Oh, this is horrible. Oh, The New Age. That's what it's called. The New Age.
Oh,
94 came out. It is an amazing movie, and I found it through Roger Ebert putting on his best of list for. I think he had it on his best of list either for the 90s or for the year of 1994. It is a fantastic movie. Peter Weller plays a yuppie with another with Judy Davis. They're a yuppie couple who run into money problems, and at the very end, he ends up having to sell like it's on Plex. I didn't realize it's on. So it's on a free
How have I
streamer.
never heard of this movie? I literally wrote the book on Weller and Woods.
Yeah,
Podcast.
this is insane because this was Roger Ebert. I believe it was Roger Ebert who was like, this movie was one of his top movies of the year. At the end, it's like the technology they're using in the early 90s is these yuppies, he's like playing with a laser disc. He's trying to figure. He's like, it's a fantastic movie.
Dude, how have I never heard of this?
Yeah, you love it. I think you'll love it. It's peak Weller.
Man, anything where Weller, like yuppie Weller trying to use a laser disc, that sounds like my dream.
Yeah, at the very end, he ends up being like a.
Is this the thing that fucking wins me back on fucking Ebert?
It might be.
I mean, he's the only reason. It literally, one of the trivia was number 9 on Roger Ebert's list of best films of 1994.
Exactly. It's 90s list. That's the one thing about Ebert is his 90s list. Like the movies that he has on his 90s lists are pretty solid. But this was one I'd never heard of it either. I was like, what is this? The New Age. And then I found it. I was like, this is amazing.
I gotta watch this, dude. All right. Well, I will report back. We'll do an episode on it.
Yes. Yeah. I would love to see this one again and discuss it. This is a fantastic movie.
So neighbors offered bottled water or jars of peanut for access. Look at this, Matt. This sentence coming up both made me the happiest I've been in days and the angriest I've been in days. See if you can spot why. It was great. The 1989 Tom Hanks comedy, The Burbs, was an inexplicably valuable commodity, as were movies that could captivate restless and anxious children. So it's like with one hand he giveth and with the other hand he taketh away, because he says you start off Tom Hanks comedy The Burbs. By the way, one of only 4 perfect movies ever made.
I love that movie.
It is just perfect.
One of my all-time favorites, yeah.
He then says it was an inexplicably valuable commodity. Just a valuable commodity. Take the inexplicable out of it.
I remember my friend, he owned it on VHS, and he had left it at his parents' house after he moved out. And I remember he was like, I really want to watch The Burbs. I think his wife was out of town, and he was like, let's watch The Burbs. And he was just like,
well, she's away. Let's play.
Exactly.
The Burbs.
He was like,
Put it on, man.
Exactly. So he was like tearing through his mother's house, like trying to, and he found it. He did find it, but he was like, we need to watch this. Like, and it's one of those movies that is just, you're right. It is there are very few movies that you could look at and say there's not a thing, that there's not a complaint that I could make.
It's the perfect concept, right? It's the what's he building in there, weird neighbor, neighbor paranoia of your neighbor, whatever. It's the perfect concept, right? It is the perfect cast.
Yes.
Whether it's the written word or whether it's the improvisations, it's fucking. I mean, Bruce Dern as Rumsfeld there is not a better performance committed to cinema anywhere. I'm as huge a fan of Robert De Niro as the next person. Taxi Driver was my Bible growing up, apart from the bit where he kills everybody. I just like the cinematography, this saxophone, the storyline, all the rest of it. But I lived, breathed, and ate Taxi Driver for a long time. But the wonder of The Burbs and the performance of Bruce Dern as Rumsfeld. Not to mention, I mean, fucking Duckerman is incredible as Art Weingartner, and Tom Hanks at his best, career best, as Ray. But
I mean, that was a time that was like your pre-Oscar winning, your pre-Forrest Gump, pre-Philadelphia Tom Hanks.
The best Tom Hanks.
Yeah, he was. He was getting roles. He wasn't just being handed big blockbuster roles. He wasn't,
No.
he had to do something in these roles, and he had to bring something to the table.
But dude, you look at Splash, you look at The Burbs, you look at Volunteers, you look at Man with One Red Shoe, you look at some of those movies that he made, which were the big movies because we still think of them today. You know, they're big. They might not have made the most of the box office, but they were big movies. Splash did. Splash was huge.
Right. Oh yeah.
And it's just the best era of Hanks. It's the time where you're just now. Look, I get it. As someone who was always more of a straight guy than he was a full blown comedian. Although I have to say, in Volunteers, he does a great 1940s Bostonian accent, quick witted kind of character, which I really love. But that era, he is just the perfect everyman. And I get that he wanted to stretch his wings and do some other stuff, and I won't begrudge him anything. But when he has done comedy, like when he went back to it with, he did Charlie's War, which was sort of had some sly comedy in it. And then he did oh my goodness, his other directorial film. I'm going to forget what it's called, but it's about the guy who goes back to school. We were talking about oldies going to school. It's about the guy who goes back to school in his late 40s, early 50s, and it's like a little rom-com and with Julia Roberts, and I'm trying to think what it's called. But I really love it. I really love that movie. It's just a sweet, nice, cozy, middle-aged, funny movie, and it has Pam Grier in it.
Right. Yes, which is always good. Yeah, with Tom Hanks, it's like once he became big, right? Once it was like one of those things where he's nominated for Oscars every year and all that. But I remember he did Celebrity Jeopardy on Saturday Night Live. Yeah. And he was playing himself. But playing himself as an ignoramus the way that all the other actors are ignoramuses. And I mean, I just remember him sitting there he's trying to get a pickle out of a jar, and he's got his hand stuck. And you've got Will Ferrell as Trebek being snide and saying well, you need to let go of the pickle or whatever. And he lets the pickle, and he's but the whole routine was just so beautiful. And it's this is Tom Hanks. Yeah. But we almost never get that Tom Hanks. It's almost like you forget what a great comedic actor he was.
I liked him. He did that robot and dog movie on Apple Plus recently. Where he's the last man alive traveling across a desolate post. I love that there's a Tom Hanks post-apocalyptic movie, but to make it Tom Hanks enough, instead of Vernon Wells on a giant, truck rig going crazy and screaming at him in Australian, it's like a cute dog and a quirky robot. You know what I mean? But I kind of love that. That movie was really... It was cozy Hanks. I really liked that. But no, Hanks is... Kanks, I was going to say. Kanks is great. I love Kanks. He's my favorite. I will never begrudge Kanks because he's in The Burbs. But this is... I'll read one more paragraph and then this will do. So, this is a quote. So it says, The Burbs was inexplicably valuable commodity, as were movies that could captivate restless and anxious children. Right. Which describes just about all children.
Right.
So anyway, I love the flowery adjectives. This guy, restless and anxious children. It has such a Dickensian vision of what's happening. Please, sir, can I have some more?
Right.
All right, so
soot-covered kids in London in the 19th century. Yeah, just sort of hobbling
Dick Van
around.
Dyke doing a little tap dance over by the side. All right, Mary Poppins. What is she, an Australian outbacksman? Okay, so I don't think 99% of people in America would ever stop to think, what would I do if I woke up tomorrow and all access to digital media disappeared? But we know, Christina told me, we've lived it. We've lived the great streaming shortage of 1 month in Florida. We've lived through it, Matt. Don't ever let us say that America has not gone through hard times.
Right.
They have lived without all access, Matt. All access. They couldn't even drive to another place where they might have access. They lost all access from everything, even their phones, Matt. You know what I mean? That could also, by the way, be charged by emergency generator. Anyway, they lost all access, Matt. Let's not even question it. But they know they've lived it. Christina told me, we've lived it. We'll never give up our collection, ever. And maybe one day you'll be the one to come and barter a loaf of bread for our DVD of Casino. Isn't that the best line you've ever read in your life? A woman told the newspaper, maybe one day you'll be the one to come and barter a loaf of bread for our DVD of Casino. I can't even begin to explain the madness of this article, but go ahead.
I feel like if you and I, like if this is one of those things where like you kind of, you're 10:30 at night, you were just like, this idea of like post-apocalypse, like an article about physical media. What would the article be? And you and I were kind of bouncing things back and forth. We couldn't have come up with a better parody of the concept than this article was a parody of itself.
Right. Than J. Oliver Conroy, Mr. King of the Flowery Adjectives, who thought he would paint the picture of a Dickensian post-apocalyptic Florida filled with people bartering Casino DVDs. By the way, Matt, one of the most readily available DVDs in any Goodwill anywhere on the entire planet.
Or another one of those double tape. I think my wife Jen has the double
Casino
tape.
double tape. You've got to go with the double
tape of it, Yeah. I mean, there's this vacuousness, and I feel like I'm always picking on millennials, but there's this sort of this vacuousness about like a lot of the websites that I use or like, Firefox, whatever, they have these clickbaity articles, and it's always like a oral history of my cousin Vinny, or these, it's like there's these self-important crap things that they do. I mean, when I was watching Predator, I was looking it up on Wikipedia just kind of see what people were saying about it. And there were I think it was Entertainment Weekly did the best action films of all time, and they had it 22nd. And I was like, I can't think of 22 better action movies than the first Predator. Like, it's just not possible. But like, if you're kind of grew up in this time where 1987 was way too early for you to remember anything, and you're growing up in kind of like that post period. Yeah. Well, of course, you're going to think like a Marvel movie. I think they had the Winter Soldier. Captain America Winter Soldier was like 25th. And it's like, I like Captain America Winter Soldier, but as an action movie, it is not 3 movies behind Predator.
If they had Fast and Furious 5, I'd be like, you can have it. Because Fast and Furious 5, as an old action hound like myself, genuinely surprised me. Yes. Like the final race with the safes and everything. Yes. I'm like, I don't even know how they shot this. I can't even figure out how they made it, unless they genuinely destroyed Brazil with a pair of ginormous safes being pulled by Dodge Chargers. I mean, I was just like, and fucking The Rock jumping down the fucking slum, the Rio slums. What are they called? The
favelas.
The favelas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on now. Right. That was action, and I will give it to Fast 5 and Taken and The Raid for being like 3. Oh, and The Transporter or Crank. Yeah. Pick your Statham. But those to me are like, if you're going to talk about action movies in the 2000s onwards, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of that shit. I'm not thinking of fucking, Chris Evans pouncing around in Lycra, fucking hitting CGI things. No offense, Chris, but
That's like Rolling Stone had a similar. They had Predator 4, which is a little bit closer, right, to where you want to be, but it was behind Bourne Identity, and it's like you cannot have an action movie that is helmed by Matt Damon above a Schwarzenegger classic.
Right.
It's like it's not possible. But I think there's this idea. I think there's this thing where if you're born of certain ages, you appreciate things differently, and I think that's one of the things that I feel fortunate about our age. Is that a Predator movie, it hits the right way. Like it feels, it has a feel to it that if you were younger, right, and you grow up with kind of a different kind of action, it's harder to appreciate what is going on there. You almost
completely.
And
we'll get into it with Predator 2, because Predator 2 is definitely a movie that, although I watched it growing up when it came out, and watched it probably again in college, I don't think I've watched the movie in 20 years.
Right, same.
And watching it as an adult with the now knowledge of, like 20 years worth of knowledge about action films, and about, how Hollywood made action films versus how, PM Entertainment or Canon or any of these people made action films. Seeing Predator 2 is a particularly unique experience once you've got all that baggage with you. It actually helps rather than being negative baggage. It actually helps. But it's a really good segue, and I don't want to lose it.
No.
Last point I wanted to make on this article, because I think it's worth making, Matt.
Yeah.
Amanda Bowman, who they credit for a photograph at the top of the article. And it says underneath it, Amanda Bowman's DVD collection. And then there's a quote. I just feel like companies, in parentheses, why is companies in parentheses? I don't understand that. But I just feel like companies, they're real companies, that's a thing that exists. Right. We're not being ironic about companies, are trying to herd people into streaming. It's frustrating. It's also isolating, she says. Photographed by Amanda Bowman. Now, in the photograph, she's got little dividers, right, with the names of the categories written on, right? She has provided, just luck would have it, she has provided a photograph that shows her collection, Matt, of Richard Linklater, Terrence Malick, Coen Brothers, and Spike Lee, showing Amanda Bowman to have very discerning taste, right? If she had, I would have more respect for Amanda Bowman if she had, a slew of either like musicals or raunchy comedies, or rom-coms or action movies, anything. Of course, the fucking picture you sent into The Guardian was, I've watched Terrence Malick and Spike Lee. We've all watched fucking Spike Lee and Terrence Malick, but we all know that on a rainy fucking night, we're putting on a Godzilla movie, or we're putting on fucking The Burbs, or we're putting on something. We're not putting on fucking people standing in a cornfield for 8 hours, staring into the middle distance, talking about ennui. We're not doing it.
Yes. Yeah, and I think like, yeah, I mean, I remember growing up, you'd see people that would have every TNT new classic, or every they would have all of those mainstream ones, and I'd look at that collection and be like, man, that's just boring. It's just, but it's like now I think you're right. I'd appreciate it if I saw that was, I went into somebody's place and I was
I mean, if Citizen Kane's on one channel and The Fugitive is on the other channel, I'm watching The Fugitive because it's a fucking amazing film. I mean, that's the other thing. It's there are two movies that every time we go and stay, whenever we go to an Airbnb and it's not got a streaming enabled television, not where you can't log into Netflix and shit like that, but it has cable, right? It just has whatever. The movies that are always on cable that I will always watch without is The Fugitive, Casino, and A Few Good Men. At any time of day or night, those three movies are on a cable channel somewhere. And I tell you what, I could watch those three movies over and over and over and over again. I will take them over most things. The Burbs is another one. And it was funny. I was saying, she would never have a photograph of the true movies she loves. For example, if I was sending a photograph into The Guardian, the first movie that would probably be sticking out of my shelves would be Predator 2, just because I'd want them to know right off. Predator 2 is the kind of movie that tells people right off the bat, if you're a fan of Predator 2, it tells people all they need to know about you.
Yes,
because a certain person is a fan of Predator 2, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I was thinking about myself when it's all Dolph Lundgren movies. I have just a whole. I have Dolph Lundgren movies I didn't even know I had. I have I saw I had Detention when I was looking.
You
for
have Dolph Lundgren movies he doesn't even remember making.
Exactly. But Predator 2, you're absolutely correct, because it's I friends that I've met kind of in college and things like that. After Predator 2 came out, you talk with them about movies. And, what are we going to watch? Or you'd see a Predator 2 in their collection. It's you've got Predator 2. Yeah, you want to watch it? Let's fire it up. And it's you can instantly bond with people who appreciate that movie. Because you said, Predator, the first Predator is that apex kind of classic that everybody knows and likes, and all the quotes, and probably a bunch of kids don't know that there's the meme of Carl Weathers and, Arnold Schwarzenegger shaking hands. It's the meme of two things from whatever, but they probably don't know that that's where that meme comes from, but that's, they know the meme.
Right.
Whereas Predator 2, it's that to appreciate Predator 2 is a different, because it is, I don't want to say it's a forgotten movie, but it's it's underappreciated, I think.
Oh, definitely. Because I think even growing up when I first watched Predator, I'd always heard, but don't watch Predator 2, it's terrible. Like that always. Now that didn't stop me watching it. I watched it and enjoyed it for what it was back then. But I certainly wasn't in any way versed in action movies the way I am now. Yeah. But I certainly enjoyed it back then. But no, it has a really bad reputation next to the first one, which has possibly an inflated reputation. Even though I love the first, I'm no knock on the first one. I'm just saying, like, it has a reputation that is unimpeachable, whereas Predator 2 is considered a piece of shit. Right. I think they're two completely different beasts, and this is how I look at it. There are Evil Dead fans that are Evil Dead 1, some of Evil Dead 2, and then the Evil Dead remake, and they think that anytime Evil Dead gets too jokey, they don't like it. They like serious gore and grime and psychological blah and blah. They just don't like it, right?
Right.
And then there's other ones of us who, you know, we start with Evil Dead. We understand that Evil Dead 2 is the like transition movie. Then Evil Dead 3 is like wacky as beans, right? Predator 2 is the Army of Darkness of the Predator franchise. You either get it or you don't. You know what I mean? There are some Evil Dead fans who sit so happily in both camps. Right? But there are some Evil Dead fans that are just like, no, it's one and done, or it's one and the remake because they're both gritty and, you know, whatever. They both, take each other too seriously. But it's similar. We're seeing this debate at the moment with Frozen Empire coming out about Ghostbusters and how many times you have these Ghostbuster fans that it's the first one and that's it.
Yeah.
Or weirdly, it's like the first one and Afterlife. Like everyone hates the female one. I don't understand it. I have an article on my website that explains why the female one is not bad. It could have been a fuck sight better. I'm not saying it's great, but you know, it's not a bad film. But it's better than Afterlife, which I rewatched recently and is an atrocious piece of shit. I mean, seriously, watched with any kind of level of intelligence, Afterlife is categorically one of the stupidest and worst fucking blockbusters of recent years. But anyway, that's another tangent. But everyone overlooks Ghostbusters 2, which I think is every single bit the equal of the first movie. I love Ghostbusters 2 unreservedly. I love Predator 2. In fact, in a weird way, as much as I love Predator, I'm probably going to watch Predator 2 more often because I'm going to get more of a kick out of it in a way.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead, dude.
What I was going to say, because one of the interesting things for me growing up with Predator 2 is that I had friends who only liked Predator 2 more because it furthered the story of the Predator, right, of the alien race. You know, like I remember one time we were watching the movie and there's the scene where he goes to kill Maria Conchita Alonso and then discovers that she's pregnant and doesn't. And I remember he was like, "Everybody, shut up! We got to, because this is like important about the Predator. Everybody's got to know this." And it's like we're all in the room like we've seen this before. We know what it is, you know. But it was like that, you know, like this guy I worked with one time who like I was talking to, Crazy Train started, and he was like, "Sorry, dude, I got to listen to Crazy Train." Like while we were in a conversation, you know, it's like that kind of ridiculousness. Yeah. But what I found,
although you have to respect that level of idiocy, yeah, carry on,
exactly. Yeah. But what I discovered in meeting people who like yourself, or you know, like my buddy in college, Ian, who's a fan of this movie, is that I liked it for a different reason, right? I liked it because I liked I liked all the other parts of it. It wasn't just about furthering the Predator story, which was great as well. But, you know, I liked it as a movie on its own. And that was the thing I discovered, kind of like what you were talking about, where it's like, you know, remember my friend Ian who had a copy of it and we were talking, I was like, we just love this idea of Danny Glover as the hero. And like you said, like the action scenes and everything. It's beyond just a furthering of the Predator story, which I think for my friends in high school who are kind of geeky about that's what they liked it for. As an action movie on its own, it should get more appreciation. You know, Ghostbusters 2 is an interesting comp because I remember when I saw Ghostbusters 2, I was a kid, and it's kind of the same thing with the Predator 2, where like there wasn't an idea that you weren't supposed to like the second Ghostbusters. So it wasn't until I got to be older when people were like, "Oh, like Ghostbusters 2, you don't like that. You know, nobody likes that Ghostbusters 2." I'm like, right. Well, I don't know. When I had the chicken pox when I watched it, I was like home, you know, my
Ghostbusters 2 is hilarious. I mean, Peter McNichol walks away with the film. You get fucking Rick Moranis in a Ghostbusters onesie. Seriously, you get a giant Statue of Liberty walking down the New York streets to the sounds of "Your Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher." If that doesn't give you goosebumps, you're fucking dead. You're dead from the balls up. And I've got no time for you. Get in touch with your emotions. I know daddy never loved you and mommy never hugged you. I get it. Drop that. Move on. Grow up. Feel true emotion. Rewatch Ghostbusters 2. Realize it's fucking brilliant. Realize it's fucking hilarious. It's got a whole different plot. People always accuse it of being a remake of the first one. How is it a remake of the first one? It's not at all. In the first one, they didn't even know ghosts were real until they discovered ghosts. And then it's just sort of a series of ghosts. And then it's this Gozer thing that shows up at the end. In the second one, the slime that is throughout the movie, that is causing the supernatural occurrences to happen, that is literally feeding off the negative energy of New York. Like, so not only is it a completely different plot, but it's got a genuine, like, social conscience to it as well, right? With a little message snuck in. It's as funny as the first one, with, I still say, some scenes funnier than the first one. It ends with Rick Moranis saving the day. I can't tell people who hate Ghostbusters 2 enough that they're the problem, not the movie. It's a beautiful
You know what I think
film.
it is? I think it's didn't Bill Murray not like the movie? Like, wasn't he like not a fan of the movie?
Bill Murray doesn't like anything. Who cares what Bill Murray?
But I think that's what it is, because remember that time when Bill Murray was the biggest darling and everybody loved him?
Bill Murray's other favorite activity is fucking golf. One of the stupidest things you've ever done in your life.
I agree there. But remember, like, there was this period of time where, like, Bill Murray's on with Anthony, with Bourdain, and how great is he? He's in another Jarmusch movie, and how great is he? And he's in this Wes Anderson movie. Everybody loved Bill Murray, and it was like, well, if Bill Murray didn't like Ghostbusters, then I can't like Ghostbusters.
Right.
I feel like that was part of it. That was part of why Ghostbusters.
But then
2,
why did they shit all over the female film? He was in that.
Well, because that's different. That's women doing something, right? Right. That's like a whole different.
My fragile fanboy ego can't handle if women start doing things. The only thing I didn't like about it was they didn't tie it into the original franchise.
Right.
Set it in Philly, have a bunch of women doing it. Have the New York franchise still going on, have a whole other thing. Like this idea that ghosts only happen in New York. Like, what is that? No.
Yeah.
You could have like the fact that the Ghostbusters franchise, people don't see this. The Ghostbusters franchise could literally get 4 comedians each generation, get them together, have them in a different town, in a different city, fighting a different ghost that, like Ghostbusters Part 2, not only has a supernatural explanation, but maybe a societal sci-fi kind of commentary on what's going on in the world. I mean, right now, with all the division and shit, you could do so much with, like, supernatural stuff or whatever. But no, people are just, whatever. Anyway, I'm just saying, there was such an opportunity to do that. And that's the only thing that I feel bad about that movie, is it missed that opportunity. Apart from that, it's a really funny comedy with those 4 women in it who are all fucking expert comedians. And I think it... Yeah, I mean, the CGI is not great, and Paul Feig goes on too long, and, there's other issues, but you could say the same about every Paul Feig movie, so I'm not, like, whatever. So there was, to me, it's like, you either like Escape from LA or you don't like Escape from LA. I happen to fucking love Escape from LA, and if you don't get Escape from LA, there's a part of me that thinks you don't fully understand John Carpenter. You just, because... whether it's Ghosts of Mars or whether it's Escape from LA or whether it's like some of his, or Big Trouble in Little China, some of his more goofier entries, that's who he is too. I know everyone loves like the following Halloween and The Thing Carpenter, and I do too. Yeah. But I also love that Carpenter has a sense of humor, a sense of extravagance, a sense of ridiculousness. Like, those are things I love about Carpenter as well. And you can't remove that from the artist the way some fans want to.
Yeah. Well, that's my friend, another friend of mine who, actually, I think he also kind of appreciates Predator too. But I remember he kind of likes that goofier Carpenter, right? He's always been a fan of that. And I remember I went with somebody else to see Escape from LA before he and I went and saw it with some of our other friends. And I told him, I was like, because when I saw it, I was like, you're going to love this. And it was one of those deals where, like, he was the only one out of our friends who enjoyed it. Because, like, everybody went in thinking they were going to get this serious action movie. And I remember I was like, this is a comedy. Like, get ready for this. It's going to be funny. And they had trouble. I mean, like, I still, whenever I hear I Love L.A., I think of the end of that movie, And it's just like,
Not only that, Matt, but it's these people who watch Escape from New York thinking it's serious.
Right, exactly. Which, that was my friend that the one that I
They
knew
go, well, the
appreciated.
first one's so gritty and serious. When? It's a fucking comic book. Have you ever read comic books? Anyway, sorry, Karen, right? Yeah.
No, because that's exactly because that friend that I was excited, my friend Petrowski, I was excited to show him Escape from LA. He was the one who introduced me to Escape from New York, knowing it was a comedy. And he was like, "Yeah, you're going to get a kick out of this movie. This is a ton of fun to watch this." And I was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll watch it." And yeah,
Ernest Borgnine is a cabbie, for fuck's sake. If that's not like, people are like, well, Escape from LA was just so silly and childish. I'm like, don't get me wrong, I love Escape from New York, and I understand that tonally, one is like blue hues and slow scenes and moody Carpenter music, and the other one is bright oranges and bright reds and like heavy metal mixed in with Carpenter's music, and it's I understand that it's ramped up on every level in a way that is not your thing, right? And I understand that, but if you look at the core plot points or the characters or the setup, Escape from New York and Escape from LA are the same animal. Yeah. They're filmed, 20, whatever it is, 15 years apart with a bunch of different shit going on. And I understand people are not comfortable with that, but they're the same animal at their core in the writing.
Yeah. And they are like, they're, like you said, that there's it's almost like when Carpenter made Escape from LA, it's almost like he was like, I want to make this a very LA movie.
Right.
And New York, a very New York movie.
Of course.
And I mean, New York at the time he was making that movie was a darker, kind of grittier place.
Yeah.
But even though the humor is there, he wanted to represent that. And then the LA that he wanted to represent was, like you said, kind of like a brighter kind of,
people are not interested in what he wants to represent. They want him to make the same fucking movie over and over and over and over again.
Right.
But when you try and point out, well, actually they're fairly similar, they're just tonally slightly different.
Right.
That's not. Then they go, well, oh yeah, because it's just a remake of the first one. You go, well, wait a minute, what is it? Is it that it's not like the first one, or is it too similar to the first one? What is it that's really bothering you? Is it that your daddy didn't love you and your mommy didn't hug you enough? Yeah, let's just grow the fuck up, move on.
Because this is the thing with movies, is that everybody kind of affects this thing about movies, where it's either I've got to champion a movie that nobody else likes,
right,
or I have to not like a movie that everybody else likes, or whatever it is. And people can't just be like, I like this movie. Yeah. And here's, and I don't like this movie, or know, and it's like you said, like with the Ghostbusters, I haven't seen the female-led Ghostbusters. I've only seen the first two Ghostbusters. I haven't seen the other ones that have come out since. But it's like, like the Marvels, that came out, last year, when everybody's like, oh, the Marvels, it's like, it's horrible because you have to do homework to see the movie. And it's like, well, no, I didn't see those, those other shows. I didn't know I didn't see Ms. Marvel or WandaVision, and I understood what was happening in the movie.
Right. There's nothing ever complicated is happening in a Marvel movie.
Right. I mean, I get the fact that, like, okay, they've spent $200 million on, they probably wanted to make $1 billion, and they barely made their money back if they made that back. I understand that being an issue. But, yeah, it's like people come up with all these reasons why they don't like a movie, and it's almost like, just say, I don't like that it's all women leading the movie, and just admit it. And that's fine. It
makes me feel uncomfortable that I'm not watching yet another white man save the world.
Exactly.
Or whatever it is. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, or just be like me and go, you know what, I'm kind of done with it, and I just don't want to go down that road, which is also a perfectly fine thing to say. Okay, Predator 2.
Yeah.
So I described it originally after watching just the opening sequence, which, by the way, greatest opening sequence of any film ever, just fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
If you want to know you don't have to wait very long to know what Predator 2 is all about.
Yeah.
The only worry you have after that opening action sequence is, are they going to keep this up?
Yeah.
Or am I going to get this one thing at the beginning and like one action sequence at the end, and in the middle I'm going to have to trudge through 50 minutes of tedium? Matt, they keep it up, don't they? Through the whole fucking movie, it never stops. It's beautiful. It's just wonderful.
You know what the thing is? So it was the guy who directed this was 28 years old, I think, or 26 or something like that. He was in his late 20s, and his name's Stephen Hopkins. We don't let enough 20-somethings direct action movies. I think that's a problem nowadays. That everybody who directs are older people, and they like 2.5-hour movies. This is like what you would expect a late 20-something to do when they direct a movie, is an hour and 45 minutes of just bonkers
action.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's fantastic, man. So I described the initial opening sequence is that it's like a PM Entertainment movie directed by James Glickenhaus after he's been given the budget of like a mid-tier Lethal Weapon movie or a mid-tier Star Trek movie. Like that kind of... We're not talking millions and millions and millions, but we're not talking peanuts either. Like more money than Glickenhaus and PM Entertainment we're used to having, but not enough money that it suddenly becomes like fucking Independence Day or whatever. Just that sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I don't know what this was made for, but probably like 50, 60 million, whatever it is.
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
But that sweet spot.
For 1990, I think that's what it was, because this is the only one. So it was 35 million.
Oh, okay, right.
And it made its budget. It made 57, overall. But it's like one of the only Predators that didn't make 3 times its budget. It's really weird. Like Predator movies all seem to make 3 times their budget, except for this one, and I think maybe the most recent one too, the 2018 one. But it's amazing that they don't make more of these movies. But it's because, I guess, because the cap is like, it's like you spend $50 million to make it and it makes 150 back, and then they want like, no, let's spend 200 million to make it and make 1.2 billion back. That's really what the studios are looking for.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, it came up in the discussion around this movie that the studios were anxious to have a black male lead.
Yes.
In a movie which had, apart from the movies you and I know and love, and until the sort of Denzel Washington movies and stuff was not readily happening in 1990, sadly. And so Danny Glover really wanted to take that on board and was, once he got signed on for the movie, became a big advocate for the film, because it's, it wasn't usual. And, I'm sure that when the grosses came back in, that the studio was like, see, if we'd whitey McWhiteson or someone, it would have been a much more profitable movie. I don't believe that for a second. Also, if you cast someone else in this movie, it's not this movie. This movie needs the sweatiest of Glovers running around with the drooliest of mouths. He's pretty drooly and sweaty in the Lethal Weapon franchise. I like my Glover pretty just drenched in fluids, basically. Yeah. But Predator 2, man, he's so sweaty that halfway through the movie he changes his fucking shirt on camera. It's almost like he's just like, I'm not wearing that any longer. I can't be bothered. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing because it's like, it's like Murtaugh, right? We've got Murtaugh, but we've got like if the this world that exists now in 1997 LA, where it's like crime is everywhere and it's become so big, and it's all it's
7 years into the future, and LA is just a permanent war zone.
Exactly. Yeah. And the idea, like that would be Murtaugh, right? He'd be angrier and more on the edge, and it's like Danny Glover leans into all of that. And you make that as a great point, is that, Denzel Washington, he makes Ricochet the next year.
Right.
You've got Wesley Snipes he's not making actioners until after this. It doesn't make any sense because Shaft is one of the best.
Of course, yeah.
But for whatever reason, they just decided we can't. Of course, Fred Williamson was leading so many like low budget movies. But I think that's another piece of this that people forget. And I think part of the reason why The Gross didn't do so well is I think people wanted Schwarzenegger in the movie, and I think that's really. It wasn't Danny Glover's fault that people wanted Schwarzenegger. I think they looked at it as like, okay, it's not Schwarzenegger. They didn't know how to take this movie the way they probably should have.
Right.
It's like you said, it's not the same movie. They didn't go out and let's just make, because originally they wanted Schwarzenegger. They couldn't get him. There's a lot of talk whether it was pay. I think it was really because it was either this or Terminator 2. And James Cameron threw a whole bunch of money at him, and they said, okay, we'll do Terminator 2.
Terminator 2 was the wiser investment.
Exactly. It worked out better for him for sure. But you're right. Like, this movie is not this movie without Danny Glover in the lead.
No.
And he makes the movie, and then all the other characters around him, including the Predator, right? Which we get more Predator in this movie than we did in the previous movie.
Right.
But the fact that it's Danny Glover is the sun around which everything else rotates makes this movie go.
But it also makes it also smooths something over.
Yeah.
In the sense that all the gangs in the movie are all minority races in the film, right? So it's Cubans or it's Jamaicans or whatever. It's all people of color and minority races, right? If you had Dirty Harry type,
Right.
a white Clint Eastwood type, just carving up swathes of darker skinned people, it would have looked, it would have been ridiculous. I mean, it just would have been racist not even subconsciously. It just would have been like, oh look, here comes Whitey Cop killing a bunch of people of color or whatever. And it just would, I don't know that you would have got away with it. Not that that's why I'm saying Danny Glover got the role. I know they went out to other white, I'm sure they weren't even thinking about that. I'm just saying that with hindsight, it makes it a slightly little easier that it's Danny Glover. Yeah. And then, of course, his team is quite diverse as well. Whereas, interestingly enough, the villains of the piece, run by Gary Busey, are all very white and very uniform and so on. So it actually, by putting Glover in that role, and by giving him a diverse team of, comedy shticks to be next to him, it helps the movie immeasurably, I think, with hindsight, and allows you to also get your Busey being Busey and doing his Busey stuff, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Well, right. Because Adam Baldwin is the whitest of white guys, right? I'm trying to think of a whiter white guy.
He's the second least successful of the Baldwin brothers, even though he's not a Baldwin brother.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like he's here doing his whitest that he can do.
Right.
But
he's really bringing the white.
Right, exactly.
That's what he's doing in this movie.
And I mean, like Bill Paxton, of course, also in a similar vein, kind of, being the kind of crazy, off the wall character.
He's fucking annoying for the first half of this movie. God, you want to slap him.
Well, that's the other thing too. That was like that is one of the interesting things about these movies. That I will say that this was a thing in the 80s going into the 90s that I didn't understand was like, why do we have these characters that are annoying, even if they redeem themselves later, right? Like Bill Paxton redeems himself later. Yes, usually you have the annoying characters, you want to see them get killed and it's like there's an applause scene or something like that, or like Gary Busey decking John McGinley and Point Break, But yeah, it was one of those things that these movies, it's one of the things I think about 80s movies, and this is technically an 80s movie, it came out in 1990, but it's the same idea, that those movies that I think was an issue that I think they could have, that could have been mitigated better. I think, you just had too many of those every movie seems like they had to have one of those characters.
Yeah, definitely. But he does redeem himself, and he is Bill Paxton, and you sort of kind of always have to, in these ensemble action pieces, kind of go, well, there's going to be one annoying guy, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
The only movie I can think of where there isn't, even though they're all sort of dumbbell comedy sidekicks to Tommy Lee Jones, is The Fugitive, where every single one of that team, even if they're the dumbbell comedy sidekick, they're not annoying. You know what I mean? They're all, you'd hang with any one of them, and it'd be fine. Yeah. The other thing that I love about Predator 2 is that, there's a few things, but one of them is the way it's made, and I always try and explain this because so we watch a ton of action films and most people watch a ton of blockbuster movies, right? And so throughout that you recognize certain cliches, certain cookie cutter modes that the Hollywood is doing or whatever it is, right? And when you recognize those, on the old podcast with John Wallace or even Jim Wallace, we would often talk about the cigar chomping executive, right?
Yes.
Whether it's on exploitation movies or whether it's on Hollywood movies, there's the idea that the larger, greasier cigar chomping, I need to see a tit every 10 minutes. That guy, right?
Right.
You have him in your head going why didn't the building explode? Blow up the building. You know what I mean? Just the gelatin id of masculinity just pulsating away, smoking a cigar, being I want boobs and bombs. You know what I mean? Blow shit up or show me some titties. That person, right? We have in our head, and we would always talk about this cigar chomping executive. But most of the time you were exaggerating for comedy effect because the movie you just watched featured sort of mildly ridiculous action.
Yeah.
Predator 2 is like that cigar-chomping executive made flesh and was a genuine executive who was just like, I want a guy flayed alive or a building on fire every 30 seconds. You know what I mean? If there isn't a fucking urban guy being gunned down by another urban guy, like if there aren't cars fucking flipping and exploding, the whole movie is the cigar chomping exec being like, we haven't seen the alien in 5 minutes. Give me the fucking alien. Where's the fucking alien? He's not invisible. Take his mask off. I want to see those fucking teeth. You know, like the whole movie is of that level. And what's incredible is that Danny Glover, in his performance, reaches the level of the comedic, unrealistic cigar chomping executive, but he steps up to that level and plays the whole movie that way, which is so beautiful. Like it's so beautiful to see something just so ridiculous, because I'm not about to stand here and say that the dialogue and the acting in Predator 2 is good. It isn't. Right. It's baffling. The guy who plays the police chief in Lethal Weapon, who I always thought... Sorry?
Yeah. It's Robert Davi?
No, not Robert Davi. The grey-haired guy who's the shouty Riggs Murtaugh police chief.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
Who looks like Richard Donner, but is not Richard Donner, even though I always think it's Richard Donner doing a cameo, but it's not Richard Donner. But he's always in Richard Donner movies. He's in he's even in Conspiracy Theory. He's in like a ton of Richard Donner movies. That guy. There's a bit at the beginning where him, Danny Glover, and Danny Glover's sidekick, who wears the hat and who gets killed later in the movie, who's also kind of annoying, to be honest. He wears like the sunglasses as well, which is really stupid. Those three are like under heavy artillery fire. Like they are just being machine gunned to death, and they're like crawling along this wall while the guy from the shouty Riggs Murtaugh boss from Lethal Weapon is explaining long strings of exposition and whatever. You're like, if I was in this war zone, I wouldn't be like, and another thing you need to know about this. Like, right. No, just run away.
Right. And Danny Glover's like, let me just rip the door off my car and he's like, I don't need to know all this. I'm ready to just like smash out of here or whatever. And,
right. I mean, Danny Glover covers his car in fucking bulletproof vests and just drives it into the fucking
I mean, his entrance into the movie, it's like we already have this pitched battle where like Maria Conchita, everybody's like that, and we're like, okay, where's our hero? You know, and all of a sudden in comes Danny Glover flying through in this like old Crown Victoria, just like smashing through things, and he's like
almost killing pedestrians.
Right, exactly. Yes. It's like the best way that he could come into the movie.
It's almost what Predator 2 is. This is what I'm saying. Predator 2 is so good. Yeah. It's so good. The beginning of the movie is like another movie is ending.
Yeah.
And we're watching another movie end.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't end. It just keeps getting bigger and wackier and weirder than the movie. Plus, the other thing to be said about Predator 2, it leans into the gore, man. I mean, I know there's gore in the first one, but like you see fucking skulls being rinsed off and bodies flayed alive and fucking blood dropping. It's a horror movie. Like for all of its action, and all of its action beats and action cliches and sweaty action nonsense, you know, underneath it, it's this sort of monster horror gore alien movie. And it's wonderful, like the way those two genres like play together, and they do not shy away from the viscera at all in this film.
No, well, because the thing is that like I think that's the thing. You know, we were talking about like with the like with the horror element, right? Like the first movie does this really great job of marrying horror and action, right? And then also with the alien invasion idea, where usually the alien invasion idea is that the aliens are coming to conquer us,
right?
And this Predator, this being is not there to conquer us. It's there to just hunt us the way someone would go into the African bush and try to shoot a lion or something.
Well,
and
the
this
first movie is sort of Rambo, First Blood rather, kind of flipped on its head.
Yes,
so instead of many people hunting, Rambo, the hero, it's many people hunting or being hunted by the predator, the villain. Yeah. But it's basically, the first one is very Rambo-esque.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And this movie, it's almost like they take all those concepts from that movie and just blow them up. And I mean, I was reading about some of the ideas that they came like the scene where the Jamaican cartel attacks the head of the Colombian cartel with his girlfriend, where the girlfriend's naked and they're having sex, and then they string him upside down. Originally, that was supposed to be that guy was just hanging out by himself,
right?
And they come in and get him.
Oh, there's full-blown Peen and Bush in the movie as well. I'd completely forgotten that. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, they had to edit this thing down. Like that cigar chomping guy who was wanting more and more. They actually had to edit it down to get it so it wasn't NC-17.
Yeah. But I wanted my titties. I got my titties in an R-rated movie. I'm happy about that. I even got some Bush. Who got Bush in an R-rated movie? Me. This guy. Buy me another 4 houses.
Yeah, it's like the cigar guy is reading the script and being like, oh, so he's just sitting at home by himself? Why isn't he just getting fucked by his girlfriend? Yeah, and that's when they attack him then. Okay. Yeah, okay, well, we could do that. That's fine. Let's do that.
Straight him upside down with his bare buttocks right in the camera.
Exactly.
I want to see man Peen.
Yeah, and then they rip his heart out, which I think they cut some of that out to make it below NC-17. But because the idea was supposed to be that guy survives because he's unarmed, and the predator doesn't kill him while he's hanging upside down. They're like, no, the naked girlfriend's the one who survives. That's the one that tells the story. And so it's like that kind of thing, that kind of energy in this movie where it's like, okay, let's write a basic scene, and then what can we layer on top of it to make it bonkers?
Right. And it's funny because, and it's probably because they share stunt people or something like that. Yeah. But I'm watching IMDb. I've got IMDb Predator 2 open, and I don't know if you've seen this now, but on IMDb, it not only plays videos related to the movie, but if there's Danny Glover trailers or if there's other trailers, it'll play. So as I've been sitting here talking with you, it's been rifling through trailers. Very interestingly, the trailer it's playing right now, probably because the Robert Davi connection or maybe the, as I say, they shared stuntmen or whatever, is Maniac Cop 2, because Maniac Cop 2 was obviously a very early Spiros Rosatos movie.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this, and one of the points I wanted to make about Predator 2, is it's very rare in horror, mainly because a lot of horror is low budget, to get what we call urban horror, shot actually on city streets.
Yes.
And what's interesting about them playing Maniac Cop 2 is, although before I thought about the Robert Davi connection, which is probably why it's playing, the connection I made was one of the reasons why I love the Maniac Cop franchise is their urban horror, their city-based horror. And sure, he filmed some in LA and some in New Jersey and some, he faked New York in various different ways. And he filmed some in New York. But, what is the big criticism that always befalls Friday the 13th Part 8? It's always well, Jason doesn't get to Manhattan until the last act of the movie.
Right.
Well, when you see a movie that is a horror movie or an action movie or a horror action movie like Maniac Cop 2 is very action heavy. I mean, yes, it's horror, but it's very action heavy. When you see something like that done in the city rather than, on controllable roads out in the sticks in Nowheresville, you know what I mean? Or in Bulgaria or up in Canada or whatever, where they don't care about the roads. Or the Hollywood studios don't care about the roads, I mean.
Right.
When you actually see something that was filmed on those streets, this was really filmed in downtown LA and stuff.
Yeah.
It just, and there's a monster running around and flaying people and stuff. It really adds something. It's why I know a lot of people are critical of Scream 6 or whatever, and I don't really know why. It's why I liked Scream 6 over Scream 5, because it took place in the city. And I missed slashers in the city. I missed monsters in the city. Cue the Winged Serpent is one of my favorites. Maniac Cop is one of my, I like shit. I like stuff. A lot of the movies whether it's Shakedown or Taxi Driver or Mean Streets or whatever, a lot of the movies that I love from the late 70s, early 80s are more to do with the way they filmed New York, because they really filmed New York, than necessarily always the storyline. So, I miss urban horror and urban action, and it was really nice to see the Fast and Furious franchise go to New York City and do like a New York City sequence. It's nice to have the Ghostbusters back in New York, only because I miss the like city-owned camera. I really do. We don't get a lot of city movies now unless they're small little rom-coms set in Brooklyn or whatever. And it's nice to see, even with the Godzilla Kong movie coming out, like, it's nice to see Godzilla and Kong fucking destroying San Francisco in the last one. Like, that was fun. I want to see more of that shit. We don't see enough of it. So Predator 2, the fact that it was, and they did that thing where they're like, well, the Predator has this like little nest, so he always returns to the same building. So it wasn't like they were running around the entire city. But the fact that there were some of those scenes with them up on the roofs and him having the vertigo and all that, it just such a nice touch. You know what I mean? And really added, I think, to the whole film.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, like, one of the things that I kind of got tired of with the Marvel movies, I kind of was doing, phase 1 and phase 2 back to back, was it's just like, okay, it's just, here's the Hulk and Thor or Hulk and Iron Man destroying New York or destroying another city. And it's just like destroying all the buildings and having this like, this movie, it's yes, there's some buildings that are getting like, at least within inside them, they're being, the Predators like smashing walls and things like that. But it's not like they're just completely toppling every building and all that stuff. No. It's like, the environment is there. The other thing too, like, when you read about some of the trivia, I mean, these were some bad parts of LA.
Yes.
I guess apparently the gang, the Crips were like doing security for them. They found a dead body in the back alley sequence.
Yeah, they were
shot
pelted with bags of feces.
He was pelted with bags of feces. It was like, so, I mean, that's like real hardcore stuff. And I think one of the things nowadays is, I think, like, they wanted to do this in New York originally, and it was too expensive, and LA kept the costs down. I wonder if now LA is even more expensive to like do it.
Die Hard with a Vengeance is another one I would add to that, because they filmed really in New York, and it's fucking fantastic.
Yes,
like
that's a good,
movies that are genre movies that are set in New York or in cities or whatever. I'm always very impressed with. I always really like that.
Yeah, New York is, because everybody talks about how New York is its own character in the movie, but it really comes through, right? Yes. When you see, like you said, like Die Hard with a Vengeance, or it's amazing. In LA, it's interesting because we think of LA as being a different kind of character, but this movie brings an LA that, like, it's not like all glamour and palm trees and all of that stuff. No. It's it's a gritty place, but it works. Like you said, it's like, I mean, the idea of setting the Predator in an urban environment, because it's like, we don't want to make the same movie we made before where he's in the jungle. It's like, and like you said, like, this wouldn't have worked as well if they had filmed in Vancouver and called it LA. The fact that it's in LA gives it that vibe, that it gives it exactly what they were looking for with this.
Right. And it's the reason why when we look back at, one of the reasons why when I look back at like a Glickenhaus movie or a Larry Cohen movie or a Bill Lustig movie, all of whom guerrilla style cheated, vast action sequences and shots and all sorts of stuff. In Black Caesar, like them driving that cab up onto the sidewalk in New York, or him even walking around having been shot in the gut, bleeding. All of that was stolen footage. Like, no one knew, no one had any permits. Right. I mean, Larry Cohen, this is absolutely baffling, but Larry Cohen got away with filming a gunfight with people dressed in police uniforms at the St. Patrick's Day parade. How the fuck in New York City with fucking 1,000 hardened Irish and Italian cops marching down fucking Broadway, and Larry Cohen's just like, oh, don't worry, grab a pistol and run about firing a cap gun in the middle. I mean, nowadays, can you imagine?
Oh, yeah, no.
But no, so there's something of a thrill to it. Like when you watch Sam Elliott and Weller in Shakedown drive down 42nd Street in a motorbike and sidecar, you're just like, that's fine. I don't, like, more of that. Whatever that is, it's just exciting. I want more of that. And Predator 2 has so many of those moments where I was just like, yes, more of this, please. This is fantastic. You know what I mean? Whether it's flipping cars or, bodies hanging from various things, or, rooftop chases, all that stuff. I mean, I miss it.
subway.
so much.
The subway sequence.
Right? Oh, the subway sequence. Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, because one of the things I didn't realize initially, I thought, because it looked like they had like given a thank you to the BART system, I guess, when I was reading the credits, but I think I misread it, because it's actually, because the LA subway system wasn't it wasn't active.
Right,
at that
Keanu
time.
Reeves hadn't driven a train through the opening out on Hollywood Boulevard at the end of Speed, which, by the way, there's no subway on Hollywood Boulevard. But yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah. But so I guess they had to create like their own version of a subway to do the scene.
Right.
But I always love a good subway sequence. I just think
and
that's
it's one of the
yeah.
best sequences. I mean, my God, that is so well done. And it's one of those things nowadays where they were like, well, there's too many strobe lights. You wouldn't be able to do that now. It would, send epileptics running from the cinema. Like, how many epileptics have you actually met? I've met one in my whole 44 years of existence.
Yeah.
I've met one epileptic. And that's you've probably not met any, have you?
Right, one, and she...
one, okay.
1.5, actually, because my friend...
and she's dead. No, I'm joking.
Right, my friend's wife actually was misdiagnosed as epileptic when she was growing up in Canada.
That's the half.
So she's the half. And then a girl I went to school with, I remember she, because her and another friend, she wasn't allowed to play Nintendo because, she was epileptic. So what she would do is her friend had the Nintendo and she would go over there and play it at her friend's house and not tell her mom. Yeah. And she seemed to do okay. It didn't seem like she had any problems, but
she killed those 3 men that night in a bar in Toledo. But apart from that, she's been doing very well. And good for her. Exactly. She beat the drink. She beat the drugs. But not the epilepsy, weirdly. Anyway, sorry. But no, the subway train sequence is fucking phenomenal. Fantastic. Yeah. There really isn't a bad sequence in the movie. I get that the dialogue is cheese balls. Like Maria Conchita Alonso running around being like, fucking no nonsense, swearing and fucking whatever. Yeah. It's just kind of, don't get me wrong, it's wonderful to see, like, obviously a Hispanic woman, like in an action role and all the rest of it and blah, 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 blah. That's fantastic. I'm not attacking that. I just mean that her acting chops are not the kind of acting chops where you flat out believe she is who she is. She's not, there are some actresses who can really make you believe and some who can't. Because it's not an even playing field, you know what I mean? Casualties will be had. I don't know what I'm talking about. Acceptable losses. But there are. It's just a great movie. I was so excited when, I put it on, and within 5 minutes, I was, this is. Yeah. I want. Why are there not 85 of these films in this style?
Yeah, it's amazing. The fact that, like you said, it's even better now being older watching it, but it's never. Yeah, I one of the things I think I liked about Prey was that it felt like the perfect third movie with these two. But these two, the first and second movie, you just don't always get this kind. I mean, it's either like one or the other is like way better or something like like one is like even with Ghostbusters, you can say okay, the first Ghostbusters was probably better than the second one, but the second one's still good enough. But like this is such a unique situation where you've got two sort of, I want to say, equally good movies that are just. They're just good on completely different merits. To like make a second movie and make it in this it's not different in the sense they're both action movies, but like you like them on a different. I don't know how to explain it. I'm after kind of.
No, I know exactly what you mean, and the Ghostbusters 1 and 2 comparison is pretty similar. You also have to remember that the first film has the benefit of being iconic, right? So the first time people saw a Ghost logo. On an old ambulance, hearse, trolley car, whatever that is. Yeah. When people first saw that, they were like, "Oh!" and they heard that music and whatever because it matched an image with an icon with a soundtrack, and it. In that packaging right there, and Dan Aykroyd back in the day was great in packaging, whether it's, a pair of sunglasses and a black trilby hat on a blue background, or whether it's a white ghost through a, no ghost sign. He was just the king of logos. Yeah. And when you think about that and you mix it with the music that you intrinsically hear with each of those logos, of course it's going to bring a lump in the throat, goosebumps, hair on the back of your neck, call it whatever you will. It's going to do that the first time you see it. And it's going to be very, very hard with any sequel to recreate that, right?
Yeah.
The only thing a sequel can hope to do is keep you interested. Yeah. And for my money, I want a sequel to keep me interested by being as entertaining as fuck, by taking whatever the stuff that we loved about the first one, keeping it enough, but then adding all the other elements that just ramp up the excitement and the insanity of it. And, you know, I feel like all the best sequels do that. But I also feel like all the best sequels take longer to find their audience. I think that, you know, Ghostbusters 2, Escape from LA, even Evil Dead 2, and I mean, look at The Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah.
The fact that that's found its voice, you know what I mean? There are, for a vast swathe of people, Aliens is a better movie than Alien, and so on and so forth. You know, but I just think it takes time. I also think that we're sort of not used to anymore. Kind of, we're so, you know, rebooted, remaked, and resold out that when you see a legitimate sequel, you sort of get thrown a bit because you're like, well, wait a minute, it's not a remake and it's not a reboot and they're not trying to be meta and they're not, you know what I mean? Like they're not trying to like riff up. What they're trying to do is what the cigar chopping executives used to always do, which is like, all right, we've seen him in a jungle. Now I want to see him running across the rooftops of America. You know what I mean? And just that sort of leap where you go like, oh, get out of the fucking jungle. I've watched enough nature documentaries. I want to watch fucking Urban Decay and then imagine Urban Decay with the Predator jumping over it. You go, that's fucking brilliant. And there aren't enough people doing that these days, you know what I mean? There aren't, except the Fast and Furious franchise. Right. Vin Diesel is his own cigar jumping executive, I guess.
Well, that's the thing about Vin Diesel. I think it's such a fascinating thing, right? That Vin Diesel has created this franchise out of nothing, right? That like, you know, when it went from, you know, Fast and Furious Part 4 to number 5.
Yeah.
And then from 5 to 6, and suddenly with number 6, they're making $1 billion, you know, or 7 there, you know. And it's such a fascinating thing that like all the studios, right? They, you know, because this is what Universal does, Fast and Furious. And they all could have looked at that and said, hey, I wonder, you know, one, it's a very diverse cast, right? And there's not like there's not a sense that there's pandering or anything like that going on with the diverse cast, or like that they're shoehorning anything in or trying to do anything. It just is, right? But it's great that it is. It's, you know, it's a really great piece of it that it is. You know, like you said, he doesn't have this connected universe. When they did the Hobbs and Shaw movie, Vin Diesel wasn't happy about it. A lot of the other cast wasn't happy about it. They wanted to just keep building this one series up, and they just kind of went for it. But I guess that's the problem, right? Is that it's hard to just create something and just keep building it. I mean, with this Predator movie, it's like, I don't know. Well, I think there was like a combination of like, they didn't like the turnout. There was like an idea of wanting to do Predator versus Alien earlier, and it got stuck in development hell. You know, all those kinds of things that made it so we didn't get another Predator movie for like 15 years.
Right.
But it's
and I think the problem with the 15-year gap thing is that I then mentally, rightly or wrongly, draw a line. Right. I go, there's Predator and Predator 2, and that's that franchise.
Right.
And then there's like Robert Rodriguez's Predators, and then Hulu's Prey. And has there been another one?
So they're working on another Prey. I just found this out. That, So the people that made Prey, they're going to make something called Badlands. It's in development now, like it's starting 2024. So hopefully for next year they'll have it. Hopefully they'll be. I guess it'll probably be straight to Hulu. I think that's what Disney's going to do with these. But yeah, and then of course there's the Alien vs Predator.
I think that's what I've liked about the Godzilla Kong movies that are coming out, and I know that it has their detractors, but I actually really love those movies. They're totally ridiculous. I will say that like the human people in it, I have no interest in. But when Kong and Godzilla start tearing apart a city or jumping from ship to ship in the middle of the Atlantic or whatever, or just generally fighting each other or shooting large atomic blue lasers out of their mouths or whatever, I'm thrilled and entertained because someone in the production of those movies has remembered that these things are movies and not fucking, you know, Christopher Nolan statements of deep intent. They are just entertaining, exciting movies. And I think what's nice about going back and watching a movie like Predator 2 is that you remind yourself, oh yeah, it can be fun, it can be silly, it can be graphic, it can be extreme, it can be ridiculous. Movies can be all things, and they don't need to be, and there are some genres that hold that very well. And I think that action movies and horror movies hold other genres and other themes and other things very well together. And we have some comments and things about this as well, I believe, on Facebook. But do you have any other points that you want?
No, I want the exact same thing, because I'm watching like those Marvel movies, but watching a lot of newer movies, and I think I forget that I need to sometimes come back to these movies and remind myself of why I love them, why these movies really work for me. Yeah. Like the Marvel movies, they can be good, they can be varying degrees of good for me, but like none of the Marvel movies, like any of like the 6 or 12, phase 1 and phase 2 movies, none of them kind of give me the kind of feeling that this movie gives me. Like they don't, like I none of them work for me on the level that this movie or the first Predator worked.
No, they're all slightly more straight-faced. Even the weird ones, even the James Gunn and Taika Waititi ones that are more heavily comedic or weird, they're sort of knowingly comedic and weird. Like they go, oh, look how comedic and weird we're being. And I don't mind that. I'm not criticizing it. This movie has no intention of being a comedy because it's too busy being the loudest, sweatiest, sweariest, nakedness, goriest action movie it can be. And if some comedy comes out of that, great. Like the bit where the Predator comes into the old people's bathroom.
Yes.
And is in the bathroom, like smashing up the bathroom, and the woman comes out with the broom. Perfect. Yeah. It's like Roland Emmerich and like Dean Devlin, those guys, or Jerry Bruckheimer. Those guys know that in the midst of a bombastic, dialed up to 11 action movie, that you can place 2 or 3 little bits of like weird comedy, whether it's Steve Buscemi singing with the little girl in Con Air, or whether it's John Cusack pissing off the Irish guy whose name I can't think of right now by taking his car, whatever it is. They know, like, put a little bit in there. That's fine. But then the rest of the movie has to be dun, 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 like at this level the whole fucking time, right? The Rock, you need the bit with, I'm Stanley Goodspeed, but of course you are. Like, you need the Nick Cage, Sean Connery sparring, but then you also need Ed Harris like waving a flag and being like, blow everybody up, rah! Like you need this constant thing, and so they can push it too far. Let's not forget the James Bond franchise has included a amphibious gondola with a double taking pigeon. So as Roger Moore drives a amphibious chitty chitty bang bang style gondola through the squares of Venice, there is a pigeon that they edit so that it looks like the pigeon goes, what? And like squawks and does a double take.
Right. Yes. Or when he gets a blade off of whatever it was in View to a Kill, where he's essentially surfing down a mountain and they're playing.
And he rips a ski USA, off a ski mobile.
The Beach Boy, yeah. That's right. That's what it was. Yeah, I mean, this movie. I mean, that scene when the Predator like starts storming out of the old couple's apartment, so he's like smashing through it, and Danny Glover comes through and he's like, "I'm a police officer," and she goes, "I don't think he cares." It's like the best line ever.
I just love the idea of like the Predator frustrated in a small apartment bathroom.
Yes. Right. Well, and the other thing too is like he's frustrated and he's like trying to fix himself up and he's already like annoyed that like he almost is like when he sees Danny Glover coming down the pipe. It's kind of funny that both of them, the way that they see, because with that scene where Danny Glover's freaking out because he's got to climb.
Well, that whole sequence where Danny Glover has to climb down a pipe and then climb across a pipe. I'm like, what is this? It's mad.
Right. And it's like he sees the Punisher fixing himself up through the hole in the building that the Punisher's forced himself through, right? And he's like, "Oh, jeez, I gotta go." Because like the funny thing is, most of us would be like, "Okay, the predator's there. I'm just gonna keep going down and get away from him."
Right.
But Danny Glover's like, "Well, I'm a police officer. I gotta stop the predator."
Right.
So he's got to climb onto another pole. Whereas like the predator looks and he's like, "This guy won't stop," and he's like, I'm getting out of here. I'm done."
Right.
And
yeah.
And of course,
it's
Danny
so
Glover
much fun though. And like the way he just like cumbersomely like runs through doors and walls and stuff. I love that. But here's what people say. So Dean on Facebook says, "Is this the sweatiest movie ever?" And I said, "It's definitely high up the list." To which Jake Douglas says, "It's up there with the first Hellraiser and Body Heat, I reckon."
Oh, Body Heat, yes, yeah. I mean, because that's supposed to be the whole point, right? Is that the Predator likes to go into air, even though Mexico is really cold when they were shooting there.
Right.
But that's the whole idea, is that the Predator likes to go to hot areas that have a war zone.
He has heat vision, so his eyes are heat vision. So when human body temperature is high, he can hunt us easier. Yeah.
So if it's sweaty and shooting, those are the two things he's looking for.
Yes, exactly. So
and I always say he. I don't know if they're female predators or do they just hang out. Maybe it's like they're like a food foraging culture where the men do the hunting and the women get the grubs.
50% of America's hearts if I told them that the predator was transgender,
right,
or beyond gender. You know what I mean? Because at the end, when they all show up, they all just look like predators. They don't look like they. What I mean is, there's not like feminine predators and male predators or predators with 8 titties or something. It's just
I think some of them are the L.A. Lakers because Danny Glover was friends with the L.A. Lakers and they needed tall people for that scene. And I guess the other thing too is I think they lost all those suits afterwards. Like they
lost one or two, I think.
Yeah, and it's like they spent all this money to make those suits for just that one sequence there. But I think that was the deal. Was I think he got players on the Lakers because they were tall enough.
And then they stole all the suits.
Yeah, exactly.
Adam Park says, one of the most underrated movies in my lifetime. I will strongly agree with that.
Yeah.
And he also quotes the "I don't think he gives a shit" line, which is fantastic. Chris Powell from the Three Black Geeks, he says, "Oh man, me and the guys love this film. Danny, I'm too old for this shit. Glover was solid as the lead. Also gotta love the over-the-top drug dealers in this film, from the Colombians to the Jamaicans."
I mean, like you talked about in that opening scene when like the baddies, or one of the Colombian cartel, I think it is, they're trying to just like get up on this building and they're going through like their cocaine packing operation. And they know they've got to escape to get away from the cops. And in their frenzy, they just start like grabbing handfuls of cocaine and shoving it in their noses while they're like pulling their weapons and shooting it out with the cops.
Yeah, it's just a joy.
Yeah.
Chris Powell asked the question, do you feel in retrospect that the sequel got unfairly treated back when it came out? And I think we've answered that, but yes, I do feel it was unfairly treated.
So Champion Cinema Pod said if Predator 3 had followed in, say, like 1992, who would you like to have starred in it? And where would it be set this time?
One of my favorite sequels, and still today seems to be written off by a lot of people. I've always assumed it was just because it's Arnie-less.
Yeah.
I watched it with someone recently who had never seen it before, and out of nowhere, halfway through, they excitedly declared, "This is so fucking good." Yeah. Question, though, if a Predator 3 had followed in, say, 1992, who would you like to have starred in it, and where would it be set this time? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. So Arnie's still alive.
Right.
Glover's still alive. You've got to remind me, is Weathers is not alive, right? Weathers dies in the first one, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, but do we bring back any of the previous characters, or do we set it in a whole other place? Like, what would... obviously, where would the Fast and Furious go, right? Fast and Furious would probably either go to South America or they would go to Europe.
Yeah.
Right, somewhere exotic. Or maybe because of the whole, like, Oh, here's a good one. You do a thing like Predator movie, which is like set in the Antarctic or something.
Right. Oh, like kind of like with Aliens versus Predator. The first one was set in the Antarctic.
Oh, okay. So they've already
because those were
I haven't seen any of those sequels. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Do any of those follow on directly? I mean, there's not really a mythology to the Predator.
No. So I guess with the Alien versus Predator, the idea with those is that there's sort of like this idea that like in the first Alien versus Predator, I haven't seen it forever. I'll probably watch it again for when I do the solo pod for it. But the idea is that the Predators set up the aliens. They kind of just like let the eggs hatch in a training compound in Antarctica to kind of train to be predators, and it goes haywire. And then one of them has to team up with Sanaa Lathan to be able to take them out.
Okay. Well, so when did he say if it comes out? So this came out in 1990.
So he's saying like 92, 93, something in that range.
Oh, he's saying 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
92. Okay. Who would we like to see? Well, I think based on the first two, we go with a whole new cast.
Yeah.
And I think that if they've already done Antarctica, then
they hadn't at that time. 93 they hadn't. So this was like 04 when they did Antarctica.
So yeah, I would do that, and I would do a thing like film with the Predator and with like a few scientific researchers up in Canada or up in Alaska or somewhere. Either that, or if we want to continue the sort of, maybe it is that the Predator goes to Europe, you know what I mean? And maybe we have one set in London or one set in Paris.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like one idea I was thinking. I mean, in terms of crossovers, right? Is if you
have it set in Paris, you have Gerard Depardieu as the main guy.
Yes, that would be fantastic. Like Gerard Depardieu is this sort of like shambling, drunk on wine like detective who like solves murders, and suddenly he's just like he's like sort of shambling around Venice, with I don't know, like, and then like some like woman like Andy McDowell, I know that she was in Green Card with him, but an actress like that who's like this sort of like bohemian American woman who just happens to...
What if we go back in time? Here's an idea.
Right.
The Predator is Jack the Ripper. We go back to like Victorian London
amazing.
With like the old whatever, and we have Sherlock Holmes versus the Predator.
That would be amazing,
right?
My friend and I came.
And the Predator is basically Jack the Ripper goes around like tearing the hearts out of women or whatever.
That would be amazing. Benedict. Well, of course, 93 wouldn't be Benedict Cumberbatch, but
fuck Cumberbatch. No, we'd have a proper actor playing. We'd have someone particularly sleazy, like Jeremy Irons in 92.
Yes. Oh, he would be great. Yeah, 92 Jeremy Irons.
It's like a very sleazy Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, my friend and I came with this idea way back when we watched Predator 2. An idea called Magnum versus the Predator, and so it would take place at the turn of the century. So like the idea is that Teddy Roosevelt, was a hunter, and it's not Thomas Magnum, it's Tiberius Magnum. But essentially, all throughout history, there's this lineage of Magnums who hang out with rich people and live in the guest houses of rich people. So Tiberius Magnum is there. And then the idea is that a cybernetic Gary Busey from this movie was kind of put back together. He goes back in time because in the presidential archives, Teddy Roosevelt describes fighting the predator as, in a hunting expedition. And so that's where the whole thing, so essentially Tiberius Magnum, which would have been Tom Selleck in 92 and 93, he's fighting the predator, but he's Tiberius Magnum instead of Thomas Magnum.
I like the idea of the Predator franchise continuing in a sort of time travel vein. Yeah. So that each movie, you would have, in this case, the Predator is Jack the Ripper or whatever, or this one is set in Tokyo or Hong Kong or whatever, and it's essentially like the ninja, like the Predator is like a ninja, like a bad evil ninja, and they have to send like good ninjas after it, headed up by Jackie Chan or whatever. Like, can you imagine? Like, why is it no one ever thinks of this shit? You know what I mean? Now, one movie that I have always loved that it turns out borrows heavily from this movie is, of course, the incredible Rutger Hauer Split Second.
Yes.
Which is basically Predator 2, except that it's set in a future, it's set in England, it's not really an alien, it's more like a demon in Split Second. He is a serial killer, so it's very Jack the Ripper-esque. It's sort of what I'm talking about. Like, I guess my Victorian London Predator movie is Split Second, because it's all... The London of Split Second is all sort of underwater and drab and brickwork and whatever. And you've got a Jack the Ripper style killer going around. Yeah, I just basically ripped off Split Second, which basically ripped off Predator 2, except that I said it in Victorian London. So, but that's what I'm saying, though. Like, Split Second copied off the better Predator.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
like it didn't copy off the original Predator. It was like, I want to remake Predator 2, but in England, with a guy called Dick Durkin. And, with a character called Dick Durkin.
It's funny too, because you think of Disney having this, like Disney has an Indiana Jones movie that comes out last, whatever, and it flops, right? It didn't do anything. Why wasn't it not? They own the Predator, they own the rights to the Predator. Why was it not Indiana Jones versus the Predator?
I don't know.
I mean, that would have been How can
Why is not every other movie just so and so versus the Predator?
Right. I mean, somebody mentioned on Twitter, they were like, well, now that Disney owns it, they should have Ewoks versus the Predator, which I think would be a fantastic
But that's
movie.
the thing is, whenever they try and, like, Disney owns all these IPs. They've got to be owning them all for a reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like New Line, when Robert Shea, back in the day, was New Line, and he was buying up IPs, his whole thing was like, how do I do versus shit? Like, he wanted to do Freddy versus Jason years before it got made, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because he was desperately trying to buy up IPs. He wanted, Ash versus... Did he own the Predator at any point? Because I thought he wanted, like, isn't there an Ash versus the Predator comic book?
So, the movies have always been New Line. Not New Line, sorry, 20th Century Fox. The movies were with 20th, but the comic books were Dark Horse. Okay. And they were doing they did, Batman versus the Predator. They did, Ash. They kind of did all those kind of mashups within the comics. And then, Alien versus Predator kind of, actually in this movie, they used the alien skull based on the Alien versus Predator comic books.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, because again, Predator 2 does herald the fact that aliens, the xenomorph, the big-headed Geiger-created alien does exist in the same universe as Predator because of Predator 2. That's like, that was the movie that... It was almost like at the end of Jason Goes to Hell, where Freddy's glove comes up, grabs the mask and pulls it under the sand. You're like, that indicates that Freddy exists in the same world as Jason, even though it would take many, many years before they would make the aforementioned Freddy versus Jason. But look at Charles Band. Any chance that he's had to pit his two IPs against each other, isn't there like a fucking Talking Bong versus Ginger Dead Man movie?
I think so. Well, Puppet Man versus Demonic Toy, or Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys. Yeah,
right.
I mean,
Doll Man versus Demonic Toys is what it is.
I mean, that's one thing that Troma's never quite done. It's like they've never had Toxic Avenger and Sergeant Kabuki Man in one movie.
Right. They've had it on. They've done it on little skits and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
On YouTube, but not in an actual movie. No, and I think this is the thing: is they always think that mashups need to be earned.
Right.
Like in the way that Marvel sort of built up to the idea of a mashup or a join up or a group thing. They were like, well, we can't just have the Avengers. Right. We've got to have 10 movies before the Avengers so that people are like, wait, they're all together now? Like as if people wouldn't understand. Right. And I'm just saying you can go Predator 1, Predator 2, and then Predator 3, he's a time-traveling, Jack the Ripper fighting Sherlock Holmes guy, you know what I mean, or in Antarctica, or he's fighting in the French Revolution, or he's one of the Nazis, or whatever. Like you could have
War
him.
and Peace. You could do War and Peace with
War
Predator.
Right, with Predator, Genghis Khan. All sorts of things.
I mean, I love the idea of the next movie being in Detroit, and it's the Predator versus RoboCop. Like that would have been like that would have been the movie, you know. And of course, Weller, if you get Weller playing RoboCop, you know.
Okay, can we just imagine Weller playing RoboCop versus the Predator in a post-Predator 2 type elevated action?
Yeah,
fucking, that would have been incredible.
It would have been amazing.
Would have been amazing.
I mean, from a blockbuster standpoint, the problem now is like they made a reboot RoboCop, which I don't know whatever happened with that. I never even saw it, right. But it's like
that's why he looks like a weird polished sex toy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because Weller is old at this point that I don't know that he. What would be great is if they did have Weller in it, if he just did the voice, right? So you've got somebody else
wearing a fake face.
Yeah, and he's just he's doing because his voice would still be great as RoboCop. Right. But yeah, I mean the Predator. There's so many different things you can do with it. I mean, I think Prey showed I think it was like the first really really creative use of the Predator in a long time, where they were like, let's put him in 18th century, America, where, colonists are coming. They didn't quite get the French colonists right. They kind of made them the British colonists, where they were like just destroying everything. That's kind of more what the Brits and the Spaniards did. The French kind of wanted to live in harmony with everything. They were a little different. But the idea was
the French wanted to fuck everything and eat everything.
Exactly. That was kind of the idea. It's like, it was funny. Like they showed like they like kind of killed these buffalo and their skins hanging there. And it's like, no, the French ate the entire thing. Like when they killed a bear or something, they ate everything. Like they were not just like, let's just, kill it just for the skins. They were, but at least it was a unique idea. And I think that's, I mean, Disney is so protective, I guess, of these IPs, and they like to vault things. I mean, I think it's the scariest thing for all of us who like a lot of these things. Is like, they're going to start vaulting these characters in Marvel. Right. There's going to be these Marvel characters that you don't see anymore. And I think it's the fear with the Predators. Now that they own it, like, are they going to, put the money and budget behind a good Predator movie when they kind of feel like they can just make one Marvel movie a year, make $1 billion, and call it good?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. Alex Taylor goes on to say, released in 1990, set in 1997. Remember, I like the whole 20 minutes into the future vibe. Yeah, it was good. There was no like flying cars or anything. It was just, it's 7 years later and things are even worse than they were 7 years ago. Right. D. Shaw from the Three Black Geeks says it's a black movie, no debating. We kind of talked about that a little bit at the beginning. It definitely leans into that, I think, for lots of reasons. And I think it also saves the movie in lots of ways.
Yeah.
Matt Street says, the scene on the train is possibly the best moment in the entire series, and it doesn't even feature the lead actor.
Yeah, well, that's true too, right? It's Paxton and Maria Conchita Alonso, and I mean, what's great about it is I mean, I always love a good subway scene anyway. That's just one of my favorite things. Yeah. But it's just that idea of like the Predators just kind of hanging out, and then all of a sudden everybody's pulling guns on each other, on the train, and the Predator's like, oh, it sounds like a party. I'm gonna get involved here, and and I mean, and also you get the redemption of Bill Paxton. And I was reading that they were trying to get him as a cameo for the second Alien versus Predator movie because that would have because he was in the second Alien movie, the second Predator movie, so they thought it would be kind of funny to have him as a small part in the second Alien versus Predator. But I guess something happened with that he wasn't able to do it.
That's a shame because that would have been he would have been in the second movie of every franchise, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it would have been a cool idea.
Although he's in Terminator 1, he's not in Terminator 2.
Right, exactly. Yeah, which you could have, but I mean, this. I'm glad that everybody in the comments, obviously, I mean, people make comments all the time about movies, so I wouldn't have been so surprised if somebody was like, "This movie sucks. You shouldn't even be talking about it," or whatever. But it is good to see a lot of people just being like, "I love this movie too." Like this is, that it seems like enough people really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, no, definitely, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah,
is that like you say, like people genuinely enjoyed this movie. It was genuinely something that people were excited about, and I felt that same way. Like I remember when I first saw Army of Darkness, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I wish all movies were written this way because I loved it was like you taking a wisecracking John Wayne style character or a leading action man of the 50s or 60s full of swagger and braggadocio and plopping him into this sort of weird action horror hybrid. And I always remember thinking like, God, man, I wish there was more scripts that had this sort of ridiculous one-liner, one-upmanship kind of nonsense. And then years later, seeing Cobra, which weirdly was one of the last Stallone movies I actually saw, was Cobra. I mean, I still saw it like 20 years ago, whatever. But like, it was one of the it was one of the last that I'd seen in a while. And I remember that line at the beginning where he's like, "Man, I'm gonna blow this whole fucking supermarket up," and he just goes, "Do it. I don't shop here." I was just like, "There it is. That's the kind of line I like. Like, who writes lines like that? You know what I mean?" And so, like, that's what I loved about, like, what's funny about Predator 2 is all the action and the shouting and the running around and whatever is at that level. And it compensates for the fact that the dialogue is so clunky. Because there really, unfortunately, is not a "I don't shop here" moment in Predator 2. And there probably should be, you know, a line of dialogue that makes you. But the fact that the dialogue is so clunky and so over the top in its intention. You know, there's a lot of those scenes where I think there's like 3 scenes in a police station where they're chewing Glover's ass. Like, you know, your cowboy tactics won't last anymore because of fucking, Busey shown up. Right. So, you know, don't think you can go around doing your thing. And Glover's just like, "Get out of my way, I'm doing my thing." And I fucking love shit like that. Like, Split Second is full of stuff like that, where it's just like, "I don't give a shit." Right. I love that. It just, that's one of my favorite things about Predator 2 is all those scenes where he's just like, "All right, eat my ass," and he walks out the office and, you know, whatever. Those are my favorite. If there's any memorable kind of dialogue moments, it's in those scenes where they're like just chewing Glover's ass open, and Glover is just waits for his moment and is just like, "Whatever, you bunch of assholes," and walk on.
Well, there's a great line. My favorite line is at the very end, right, where he's just killed his Predator, and now all of the Predators show up. And they're all surrounding him, and he's just like, "Oh my God!" And he drops the blade. And he just goes, "All right, who's next?" You know, and of course they're just like, "This is not what we do. You know, this is not how we get down." Like, you know, but the other thing too that I love about that scene is they throw him the gun, but also in a very Predator style thing, they're just like, "We're leaving," and it's like, you know, like, "Oh, I got to get off this ship. Like, I got to run." Like, they don't care if I stay on the ship or not. They're just leaving. They're very Predator-like that they're just going to take off.
I forget. Danny Glover has to run away from a spaceship at the end of this movie.
Right, exactly.
And comes out, like, covered in soot.
Dust, right.
And then, you're making me remember. And then the guys come down with the helicopter or whatever. And he's just like, "Fuck you," or whatever.
Right, like Adam Baldwin starts giving him a hard time because, you know, he's Adam Baldwin. And,
like, "We were this close to being able to capture a predator."
Right. And he's like, "Do you know what I just went through?" Right. You're not capturing a predator. Like, you're just like, you know, this is like, But I think he like grabs him and then just like.
But I think it is really important that he triumphs over essentially a uniformed band of whitey goons, basically.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean,
the fact that they all wear beige chinos and blue puffer jackets is just fucking perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the schoolyard rapist ideal look. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, what I love too is that idea of like, okay, the Predator can't see our heat if we wear these outfits. And Danny Glover's watching them from the camera, and he's like, "You morons, the lights have heat." And he can see the heat coming from the lights.
Yeah.
And he sees you. And he's like, "Guys, get out of there. He can see you." And they're all like, No, we're doing this. We don't care. You know? And I love how his reaction isn't like, "Okay, well, you're going to get killed by the Predator." He's like, "I'm going to beat up the people in this trailer with me, grab a shotgun out of my trunk, and go in and try to fight the Predator myself."
Oh, yeah, there's this whole sequence while the Predator is, like, systematically tearing Gary Busey's entire team in half. Right. Where Danny Glover is cumbersomely and slowly, like, suiting up for action. Right. And it's actually, what's weird about it, actually, is that, and this is where Split Second gets it right, because it's like, "We're going to need a lot more fucking guns." Right. That's what it says in Split Second, right? When he goes into the armory and they just start loading up with huge weapons. In this one, Danny Glover is just like strapping a few things, and he just has like a shotgun and a sidearm or whatever. And I really thought that, considering how enormous and bombastic and ridiculous the Predator was, he should have had a grenade launcher and a fucking rocket launcher and a bazooka, and he should have had like 15 enormous weapons on his back. He should have had 2 machetes crossed across his chest. He should, you know what I mean? Like he should have had like a bullet belt and the whole bit. Yeah.
But I think the reason why they didn't do that was because that was like the mercenaries in the previous movie where they've got like the big minigun, and they're like, no, we want it. It's almost like we want Dirty Harry, but but Danny Glover. We want Murtaugh against the Predator is what we want. Yeah, and so it's fascinating. It's almost like the big deal that he's getting a shotgun instead of his normal gun.
Yeah.
But and the thing I loved about it too was that whereas Schwarzenegger is like he's creating all these traps and all of this stuff with all his military know-how. Danny Glover's just being resourceful and using whatever's around him, and he grabs the blade from the Predator that's his own blade, and he uses it against him.
That whole thing where he's trying to reach the. Yeah. Also, that's got to be the worst weapon. If that weapon cuts through flesh that easily, can you imagine trying to pick that up?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm losing a thumb. The first time I try, man, I'm losing a thumb. Yes. I've just gone slip, and instead of like when you accidentally cut your thumb with like a sharp knife or whatever, and you look at it and you go, any minute that blood's going to pool, and I'm going to feel it, and and you sit there and you wait for the line to show up, and then it bleeds and whatever, and you run it under a cold tap, and as long as it's not flapping too much, you put a Band-Aid on it, and you get on with your life. This thing, trying to pick this thing up, you'd lose a whole hand, I feel like.
Right. Well, because when he's reaching for it too, the way that they cut it.
Yeah,
because they had to edit it a certain way. It looks like he's barely able to get to the blade, and then the next cut, he's actually getting his hand into the finger holes.
The little hole, finger holes in the middle.
Yeah, and I mean those finger holes, even those, like because they're designed for the Predator, it must have been awkward for him. But he pulled the thing out, cut the guy's arm off, and then then strapped it to himself.
And I understand that they wanted to have them carry off the body.
Right.
But he should have cut the fucking Predator's head off.
Yes. Yeah.
The last shot should have been him holding the fucking Predator's head covered in dust.
Yes, that would have been great.
Like waving it at Baldwin. Like, fuck you, Baldies.
Yeah, throws it at him like, there, I got your Predator. Yeah, I got your, I got your guy here. Yeah.
That's what it should. That's how it should have ended.
Yeah.
They missed a trick there. I kept wanting him to slice the Predator's head off.
Yeah.
Either that or do one of those great moves at the end where he just discussed that fucking thing and it killed like 20 predators that were in that spaceship and just went around lopping heads off. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the end of Kingsman.
Right. Well, because that's the thing, right?
Exploding.
When that scene happens, you do kind of like. There's that sense of like, what's going to happen now?
Right.
Like Danny Glover's dead, or is he going to fight all these? Right.
Well, I was running through my head, and I'm like, which character could jump through the door at the last minute and like Sundance and Butch and Sundance their way out of this?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, they're all dead, like all of them. You know what I mean? Like no one really survives this movie except Danny Glover, and he's covered in dust.
Right. Well, Danny Glover and Adam Baldwin for whatever like it's
Baldwin's not about to come and endanger himself for Glover's.
Right.
Yeah, Baldwin's a scumbag. But yeah, Predator 2. I don't know that I have much more to say about it, and we've been going 3 hours, but
It's that good, I think, for people that are listening, because it seems like everybody in the comments, they've seen it recently and they really enjoyed it. But I think for people who haven't seen it recently, it's worth a look-see, especially like if you're watching more modern things. It's good to kind of go back and see some like these and kind of get a taste of like almost like why you were even watching these movies now,
Yeah, and I agree. This is definitely one that if you have a love of action, if you've seen everything from big billion-dollar blockbusters to little B movies or C movies, this has a flavor of both, and it's got a sense of its own ridiculousness, and it ramps everything up to 11, and it's incredibly enjoyable. I would definitely check it out. Last thing for me on the After Movie Diner, last bit of business, is that just tonight I put up 2 videos before we went live with this show about my VHS collection. A few months back, I was asked on Instagram, like, what are some of your rarer VHS tapes? And I don't really have a lot of rare VHS tapes, but I do have VHS tapes where normies would be like, what is that movie? I've never even fucking heard of it. I have a ton of those. So I basically did a couple of videos where I go through my Donald Pleasance collection, my PM Entertainment collection, and then just a bunch of random movies from my shelf. I think it's a lot of fun. It's up on YouTube right now. I've also posted it on the website, aftermoviediner.com, and it will be up on Instagram and Facebook later tonight. But check that out. It's called my VHS collection, Rare, Weird, or Beloved Tapes.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff's always fun. I always like seeing other people's collections, seeing what they have, and whether it's movies that I have myself, it's like, oh, I know that box, or like if I don't have it, but or even like with the PM ones in particular, where it's like a lot of those, I got those on Netflix, rentals. So I never
realized
saw the tapes.
that most movie collectors who have VHS shows on YouTube are awful. And so, not that their shows are awful, a lot of them are very well produced and have opening intros and stuff like that, whereas mine is just a cell phone camcorder, like filming me in front of my VHS. But they're awful because they're the kind of people who, I have, in my video I go, I have Goblins Ate My Face 6 or whatever. But they have some movie that was shot on video in buttfuck nowhere that was sat on a shelf for 10 years that, was distributed for 3 weeks in 1991 by a company that went defunct before it even started. And they're like, I got this tape for 25 cents at a yard sale. Right. I'm like, no, you didn't. Yeah. No, you didn't. But you're going to say you did because you want to lord it over everybody.
Right.
And you want to be like, I have, Ferret Devils 9. You don't have Ferret Devils 9. Oh, and did you know there is no Ferret Devils 7 or 8? Actually, Ferret Devils 7 was actually renamed Otter Wars by fuck off! Those people, I want to do away with those people. I am just oh, look, I have a Donald Pleasance movie, and it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's always kind of cool to see, just to, that kind of, Donald Pleasance VHSs are just, the movies that he did, the movies that he was in, it's just,
I have a couple of classics.
Yeah.
I have some real great ones that you're going to enjoy seeing.
Nice.
But those are up on aftermoviediner.com. Any other bits of business from you, Matt, or are we good to wrap it up?
Yeah, the site, dtvconnoisseur.blogspot.com, that's where you can find everything, links to the podcast, links to my novels, links to Threadless, where, you've designed some of the shirts. I'm wearing one of the ones that you designed. So, everything's there. dtvconnoisseur.blogspot.com.
Love it. Well, Matt, this has been another classic episode. I still haven't edited the last episode. But when I do, what's going to be nice is I'll have this one. I'll record with you again probably next week. It'll be good. And I'll have a few episodes in my belt, and I'll just release them. I think if I have them loaded up and ready to go, it'll be easier to kind of release them on a scheduled date and try and keep up the regularity.
Yeah, that's the way I try to do it. I try to get as many in the can as I can, kind of thing. Yeah.
And then maybe we do a Belushi.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, look, let's talk next week. Let's do Wings Hauser. I'll watch those films, and once I've let you know, I'll tell you what night works for me. But,
okay, perfect.
Thanks for always being available, man. Thanks for running long. I love running long and chatting about everything. So
no
have a good night, dude.
You too. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. Have a good one.